right, we do have a quorum present. If you'll just make sure your phones are silenced or on vibrate. It is Monday, August 19th, 2024, and it is 6:00 p.m., and we have a quorum present. So we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Paul is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Paul. Denise is going to read our board mission statement.
Through high expectations and equitable opportunity, TMISD will focus on the whole child by providing a safe environment and high-quality curriculum with diverse and enriching experiences.
Thank you, Denise. And we don't have any public comment for tonight, so we'll move on to the budget workshop.
Mr. Carroll?
Good evening, everyone. This is pretty much not a lot of deviation from our last meeting. I just got it in the prettier looking format. Just kind of showing the graphs of our enrollment, and you can see ADA for last year wound up being 3,350. That's what I'm using to project for next year as well. And you can see the trend. We're still not back up to where our high point was back in 18-19. We were 3669 ADA. Enrollment was almost right under 4,000. And you see that trend. And then tax rates. Here's where it kind of graphically shows our values. The big drop that the appraisal district did this year. And this is once again, now that the 313 agreement, or at least the 313 agreement is still in effect for 3 more years, but the limitation expired. So now we don't have the gap between M&O and INS anymore. They're exactly the same. But you can see the big drop in the INS rate. That shows you the full extent of what the appraisal district lowered the values specifically on Flint Hills. And here's what we're looking to for the proposed and the current tax rate. And you can see there's no difference in the M&O rate. Since our values went down, we hit the floor. The state's not making us compress anymore. There's our golden and our copper pennies, the 13 cents that we have above, which is the old 17 cents that the TRE did back in 2010, compressed to 13 cents. So the M&O tax rate's going to stay the same at 7.575, and then the INS rate is going up a little bit, a little under 2.5 pennies. Combination of payments are going up a little bit more because we sold the first bond payment, so we have those payments start kicking in next year, and the value, since the values went down, the rate had to go up to accommodate for the decrease in the values as well. And so you'll see the difference in the total tax rate there, and then just graphically, it kind of shows you there's the M&O rate over the past 10 years where we come down from the high of 117, compressed down to where we are right now. Then our INS rate has dropped down. It's going to start going back up once we start selling more bonds. Our values stay stagnant. And that's the total tax rate over the last 2 years. And then here's what's in the notice that was in the paper. This, what they make you publish. It is kind of interesting. Last year was the big year that the 100,000 exemption got put in there, so that it did have a big decrease for the average resident last year, but it went back up this year because the average market value of the residents in TM went up a little bit too, and our rate's going up a little bit. Since our INS rate's going up about 2.5 pennies, so impact on that too on the average resident. And then talking about the general fund, these are the factors, we've talked about. TA pretty much set the tax rate. It stays the same because of TEA. I'm estimating the current certified values as of right now. We won't know for sure if the comptroller agrees with that until February of 25. I'm using the same estimated AD, exactly the same as the AD for 23-24, and 98% estimated tax collection rate. And then I feel like I've just said this stuff so many times, but formula transition grant went away. The previous 5 years, we were guaranteed 10,266 ADA. Now that's gone. Using the estimated numbers that I have, estimated ADA and everything identical to this year, estimating the certified values, our funding's actually going down to only 10,189 per ADA, which is a 7.5% decrease. That's another one of those factors that's difficult to explain. That's another reason why even cutting all the positions, that's another reason why we're still in the position that we're in. I mean, we're getting less bang for our buck. Even if everything else had changed, we're still getting less per ADA than we were before, based upon the relationship between the values, the certified values, and everything else. It's part of the issue.
But,
Because that's per kid.
Yeah.
yes, but there is some positive news on that, depending on how it washes out in Peens.
Correct.
You want to talk about that with CTE?
Well, this is, we're anticipating higher program numbers for next year. We are seeing that trajectory going about enrollments.
And we wouldn't have, the CTE numbers wouldn't have generated any additional revenue because we were capped
At the grant, yeah.
at the grant. Now that the grant is gone, he's using very conservative numbers.
Right.
But we've got a lot of kids in CTE and a significant amount in level 4 and level 5 that he's not
Right.
factoring in, correct?
Correct. And I'll preface this, the umbrella is, this budget looks a little different than last year because last year was the first year of these multi-million-dollar deficits. And I'll say, trying to put lipstick on it and make it look better than it is. I budgeted for significant salary savings because I knew we were going to go through attrition. This budget has, I'm budgeting 100% as if we're going to be fully staffed all year long. So I'm anticipating that the deficit's not going to be the true deficit because there will be some savings. If anything else goes up, that deficit will go down. So I'm basically painting the worst, trying to paint not the worst position, but the most realistic position, because then there's only one place to go.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where we want to be.
Well, what I tell him is, he's doing an excellent job in painting a worst possible scenario.
But Phil, when you say that you're budgeting to have everything filled, like all the positions full, well, isn't that where we need to be for our kids? Positions filled?
The thing is, realistically, we never spend 100% of every position because we have positions that people resign during the year and we don't fill the position for a month later, and maybe a more experienced person left and the newer person that comes in doesn't make as much, so there's some salary savings there. And then unfortunately, there's the people run out of leave and we start having to dock their pay at the end of the year. Yes, we might have to pay subs if they're teachers and they're out, but we're saving more money. I don't want to say we're saving more money, but the reduced salary of the employee that's run out of leave is more than what we're paying the sub. So, there are natural salary savings that just fall out. And this year, I'm not budgeting for any salary savings like I did last year. That's another reason why, even though we reduced our positions, that salary savings that I budgeted for last year, that was already in my base budget. So when you take my base budget from last year and can move it over here, the impact's not as great because I was already anticipating that the savings from all those positions, or a chunk of all.
I think you said it this morning and it resonated with me. Our issue right now is not an expenditure issue. It's a revenue issue.
I explained that to someone today,
Yeah.
And then I'm here to paint the bleakest picture, but the other things, since we're out of the protection of the grant, you can look at it both ways. We were capped with the formula transition, but we were also protected from dropping too. So yes, we can go higher if the criteria is there. We can get more than 10,299 or 266 per kid. But if our collections don't kick in, there's not gonna be that net to make up the difference. And to me, the biggest risk is if the comptroller's certified values don't mirror what Nueces County said, that could have a negative impact on us as well. To me, those are the two most scary things that could happen.
Do you want to explain that a little bit about the values?
Well, just, and this is the thing that's out of our control. We don't control what Nueces County Appraisal District does.
Or the state comptroller's office?
And the state comptroller has their own method of, because they want to make sure that entities are fully taxing, like, they want to make sure we're paying our part. They want to make sure we're collecting the taxes that we're supposed to collect. So if they think your appraisal district's undervaluating the property, we're the ones that are going to get punished for it, unfortunately. So it seems like a really convoluted, insane situation, but that's the fact. And then just, and you look at the summary sheet, as each meeting went, I started adding new things that we did. This is a summary of everything to date, and this isn't the end. I still got a few more meetings tomorrow and Wednesday to finalize the department expenditure reductions, and so there's going to be more. But just looking at all the revenue projections, all the bullet points that I talked about, because of the decreased values, and we're locked in at our M&O rates, not going to change. Property taxes are going to go down about $2.3 million from my base budget from last year. I'm reducing investment earnings, so even though the investments are paying, as we've been spending down our fund balance, we're going to have less cash in the bank during the year, so I'm not going to earn as much. And then there was that decrease. I am adjusting the 313 payment, which we're still getting the $100 per ADA for 2 more years, I think. But it's based upon our ADA, so since that's been dropping, I'm getting that to a more realistic number to match what we're actually going to get paid.
Philip, have you talked to anybody about what the threshold is to where we would reach a point where there wouldn't be any recapture?
I have not. I haven't played with the formula to see like what it would take to make that go away.
But it's bound to be getting close if we're $2 million less. And
You would think that, but we're pretty much right. I think it dropped. I think it did drop. I think there it is right there. It's about $200,000 less than the base recapture from last year. It's going down a little bit. It's dropped below $1 million right now. My estimate is it's 900,000 and change. Last year it was a little over $1 million was the estimate, and unfortunately I think that's what it's going to wind up being. I think it's going to be right under $1 million for this last year. Once they get all our final summer data, and once I turn into tax collections next week, I think it's going to be a little less than $1 million. And then based upon all the estimates, the state funding is going to be about $834,000 less than my base budget from last year. And then Mac and Shards is going to continue to go down, but what I'm using for my estimate for Mac and Shards is, yes, we got that huge cut last year based upon the state's knee-jerk reduction in funding, but I already know what my settlement payment is for next year. The third-party company that we use, I've asked them to say, well, then what's realistically on the new rules that they're applying to the services that we provide, what is our settlement actually going to be? And that's what this number is based on. So I'm pretty confident that Mac Shards number is a good number. And then we exhausted all the ESSER funds, so there's no more indirect costs from spending the last of the ESSER money, because we spent it all fiscal year 24, so that $50,000 is coming out of the budget. And then, like I said, this is still a work in progress, but so far, the campus budgets, and this doesn't include any categorical program funds, just the campus per capita budgets. They're 10%, and some of it's not exactly 10% because I lowered the per capita a little bit, but then I also funded them based upon their numbers, and I took whatever their highest number was, either their enrollment last week, or their snapshot enrollment last year, or I picked the highest number for them. But right now, I've decreased it about $85,000. That's just the campuses. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit tonight. I've already projected that number that's in there right now, I put another 13% increase. we're gonna talk about that again on another item tonight, and that's subject to change. But that's already in there. There was a slight increase in the debt service payments on the maintenance tax notes. That's just the regular principal and interest payments just went up a little bit on those. And then I did decrease security services because this is going to be a one-time, one-year set-off. We got a security grant that we're used to basically supplement and lower our security costs. So we have another revenue source to pay for some of our security costs this year. That's going to go away unless we get another grant. But this is just a temporary one-year thing to offset security costs. And then overall department cuts. This number's going to go up because this only had like 1 or 2 departments. I'm meeting with all the other. I'm getting all the worksheets back from all the other departments. This number will go up. Right now, it's only 15,000. But this is the pretty much we're going across at least across the board 10%, asking everybody to reduce their budgets 10%. And then this is where the overall net decrease from my base budget from last year is $1.3 million. It's actually more than that, but remember I had salary savings already in last year's base budget. But this is a reflective of, because the step raise is in there, but with all the reductions in positions, this is what the overall net increase for salaries and stipends, decrease for salaries and stipends. And then, like I said, the teacher step is in there. We eliminated 23 positions, and I'm saying 23 positions from last year's base budget to this year. But remember, in the last 2 years, we've eliminated 35 general fund positions and almost 48 total positions. And like I said, I have no salary savings budgeted. I'm budgeting 100% as if we were 100% staffed all year long. And then this is just a summary of, but this is where, and think about everything else I was talking about was a change from last year's base budget. But this is the number that really counts. When I take my estimated revenues, which are only a little over 39 million, my expenditures are still $42.5 million. So we still got $3.2 million deficit right now. But I still got some more department cuts coming in, and that'll be finalized, and you'll get that for our final meeting on the 26th when we do our final adoption. And then real quick, let's see. Oh, and then here's the thing, like worst case scenario, if I take, and Mr. Gonzalez isn't here, but I did, and Ms. Villalobos, she hadn't been here, but I'm looking at, unfortunately, I think the 24 deficit, it's going to be about $3.2 million. It's going to be what it is. There's no wiggle room in that. So if I take the 3.2 that's going to come out, and that'll be finalized once we do the audit, but I'm estimating right now it's going to be really close to that. And then worst case, if we take another $3.2 million out in fiscal year 25, my fund balance is only going to be about $5.7 million, which is a little under 2 months of operating expense. It's worst case scenario. I look on that number. I'm going to have some more cuts in there and make the bottom line look a little bit better, but that's where it is now. But next week we'll get the final one. And then real quick on the debt service fund, total outstanding debt principal as of August 31st, a little over $77 million. That's the $45 million that we sold this year. That's in there now. And then there's our scheduled payments for 24-25, $7.3 million. INS rate will be increased to a little over 19 cents. But the estimated fund balance as of August 31st for this year is still pretty healthy, 3.2. We're getting ready to defease about $1.7 million of debt next week. That was already in the budget to pay off some of our old debt a little earlier. So it'll save us some interest on that too. But that fund balance, that payment's still in there, so we still have a nice fund balance because of the lump sum that we got from Blake Hills 2 years ago. And I'm using an estimated collection rate of 98% for this one. We've got a little bit more breathing room in this fund with that nice fund balance. If tax collection rates are not as high as 98%, we still got cushion to cover that. And one thing to remember about debt service rates is I do have a little bit of there is some caps or controls on that too. I can only go back and use whatever the lowest tax collection rate for the last 3 years. I can't inflate my collections by saying my collection rate is only going to be really low. I can only use what my tax collection history is. And then this is just a summary of the debt service fund, what I'm anticipating coming in income and the debt payments. So we've got a 3.2 fund balance, and right now the budget, it's showing a $322,000 surplus for next year. So the fund balance will be about $3.6 million after next year if everything comes in. And then just real quick, truth in taxation regulations, I still have to go through this. I still have to fill all these forms for the comptroller that prove that we're not charging more than what, we're not generating any new revenue, but it's the state comptroller trying to take their no new taxes rule and morphing it into, we're controlled by the state, we get funded by the state, and we have all the rules from TEA. And you'll see that when you approve the items next week for adopting the tax rate and the budget. And then currently, we can't increase our M&O rate unless we have another voter approved election, which you have to have an efficiency study. And I think we mentioned, I've had TASBO look at it, and getting back those, I guess all we could get back is those compressed pennies that we lost. I think the estimate TASBO gave me was it might generate $600,000 if you did it. But you'd have to have the efficiency study, and you'd have to have the election, and even passed. It wouldn't make up our deficit. It wouldn't help enable us to do anything.
So explain that again. It would give you $600,000 for what? Just the one time?
It would allow us to raise our tax rate above what the state says we can. The voters would have to approve it.
It's called a VADER.
It's called a VADER, a voter-approved tax something, and they used to call them TREs, tax ratification elections. But you have to have an efficiency study, which I hear is really nothing. But then you still have to call an election. You have to run it. And what it does is it allows you to set your tax rate higher, and you get to keep that money. You don't have to send that. We wouldn't have to send that money back to the state. But I say only $600,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a like I said, a lot of districts are doing it so they can give raises. They're doing it so they can do extra things, but they're not in the deficit budgets that we're in. I mean, it's not even going to wipe out our deficit.
But we just passed a law telling the community that we would not raise their taxes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then, like I said, the no new revenue tax rate, there's just some verbiage that I have to see in the resolutions when we adopt our tax rate next week. Any questions? One thing, I apologize, I don't have food service in here, but you will see food service next week. The food service fund still has an excess fund balance. We're trying to spend the money down. And you'll see the budget for food service.
That's only for equipment?
Equipment, we're gonna buy a vehicle, we're gonna repair some walk-ins, some freezers.
Personnel.
It allows the free and reduced lunch that we're providing right now. We're paying the offset with the excessive fund balance.
Right.
So that everybody eats for free.
So we got that approved, because last time we got hit back on that one.
Well, this year, that first one, it was too late, but no, we've been doing the CP
Last year.
for all campuses. Everybody eats free. We're only getting reimbursed at our rate, which is like 85% or 86%. So that 14%, we're not getting reimbursed for that cost, and so we're gonna use the fund balance to offset that expense. But we are. Here's the thing, though. Texas Department of Agriculture doesn't count that as a legitimate thing for spending down your fund balance. So we have to submit a plan of how we're going to spend the excess fund balance, and I'm not allowed to use that expense of feeding everybody for free. So
the 14% comes out of the general fund?
no, nothing.
comes out of that
The general fund's not affected at all.
Okay.
We got everything in line. Everybody eats for free. We just have to continue to, I think the forms went out, I think they're due this Friday, but we just have to We don't do free and reduced lunch applications, we do the socioeconomic form, and hopefully the parents are all filling them out now, because we need to collect those and get that data in before the October snapshot, because that's what determines our percentage of socioeconomically disadvantaged
It's not an easy form either.
And it's not an easy form. And it's very important that a lot of people don't like to fill out their income, but we need to get that stuff back, because that figure impacts a lot of our stuff. It impacts our federal funding, it impacts accountability, it affects a lot of
And
things.
what percentage rate is the ISD on the?
I know we're in the district, as a district, we're in like the
District-wide.
60, I want to say maybe mid-60s, upper 60s.
As a disadvantage?
Because when we do the CEP, there's a factor you get to add, that gets us up to the 86. But actual percentage-wise, we're like in the 60 range, and it varies. Like if you look at the elementary campus, that's higher. The elementary campus, I think, even gets above 70. But then you get to the high school campus, and it might drop to closer to 60. So when you average the whole district together, we've been hovering right about that 66, 67, 68% for the whole district. Any other questions? There will be some changes. That 3.2 number will get lower. We'll shrink a little bit. And we'll adopt a budget and a tax rate in that order next Monday. And just a quick note, I forgot to ask about the meeting, and so when I put the notice in the paper, it had the same time from last year. It's 6:45. So the meeting next week is at 6:45.
Monday is
So-
6:45.
So that's what I put in the paper. That's when we have to meet. So I apologize. I forgot to ask when we wanted to do it, but it's already in the paper. It's a done deal. So we're going to start a little later.
I was just gonna comment on, yeah, we do have a revenue problem, so continuing to focus on attendance, because that drives revenue. I think it would be beneficial for us to get together with some other school districts to explain to the tax collection office how much more crucial it is for tax collection this coming school year.
Yes.
So they can have a fire lit under them as well, not just the districts.
True.
And then, yeah, once the legislative session starts, get it, we need more funding, so.
And I'll continue, keep the financials coming. As soon as we get our preliminary certified values in February, that's going to be, to me, by then I'll know, usually by February, that's when the big collection comes in. Most of the people get their taxes paid by that January 31st deadline. So within the first couple weeks of February, I pretty know that's the tax collections for the year. Yes, I get delinquent taxes the rest of the year, but if I showed you the graph, it drops off. I mean, it really tailors off. So by the middle of February, I pretty much know what my tax revenues are going to be, barring some weird thing with a big taxpayer like Flint Hills. But and then I'll know what the comptroller's estimated values are, and that'll be the time where if that number's way off, then that's when we protest to the comptroller that hey, we want another look at this and see if we can, if that number is not what we want it to be. If it's not,
Has TM ever submitted a protest?
not like that. We have done, I don't think they were protests, they were just called, what do they call them, where we just, because after the dust settled, and then we could recognize that, yes, during the year, there were significant decreases in our values, so they'd go do these adjustments. But they weren't
Like
really.
an appeals process?
It was like an appeal, but it wasn't really a protest, and maybe it was, but that was back in the day when certified values it was a leap year lag. You always used the previous year certified values to determine your revenue this year. Now it's all lined up.
So you don't remember ever
No, not.
paying a percentage of what you saved from the
I
protest?
guess we did that, but they were appeals. We used that firm, Ray Wood and Vine, and they would fill out all the paperwork, and then whatever our additional state revenue that we earned, because our values were lower than what they had based them on, they would take I think that we paid them 7% or whatever we got back. I would tell you the most we ever got back, I think, one year, I think we got like $100,000 back. And so, I guess they are a form of a protest, but this one is going to have so much impact on us that as soon as we find out what the certified values are in February, if they're not in line with what the appraisal district turned in, we're going to have to see what we can do. We're going to have to appeal for that and see what we can do about that. And I will see y'all Monday, just a little bit later.
Actually, you'll see him in a couple minutes,
Yeah, again.
the next
tonight.
agenda item.
Oh, well, I'm going to turn that, oh, yes, my gentleman's here, yes. Someone else is going to do all the talking now.
All right, so thank you, Philip. We're moving on to agenda item number 1, discuss and consider approval of property casualty insurance options.
Mr. Carroll, you want to introduce our gentleman, our visitor?
Yes, we have Chase Carlisle from Carlisle Insurance here with us, and I asked him to be here I'm not an insurance expert by any means, but I wanted him here to kind of go over, I don't know if you read the news, Flower Bluff was in the news, some other districts are looking at some options, and so I just brought him here to just talk about some other options that we have to see about if we can lower some of our property insurance premiums. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Carlisle, but we do have a little handout, and it was in your packet.
Really, the details are on the next page, if you don't mind. So just wanted to give everybody an update of where we currently are insuring and how the program's set up right now, and then we'll go through a couple options that we can look at going into the 2025 to 26 policy term. So currently, we insure about 234 million building and contents assets within the district. We've got a 3% named storm deductible. We buy $50 million of coverage, so everything in the district, all those buildings and contents are insured, but the policy would never pay out more than $50 million in the event of a hurricane or a fire. Again, the theory behind that is a fire is generally isolated to 1, maybe 2 buildings. The district has buildings spread out throughout the community, so we could never have a fire go through the community and burn down all our school buildings, so we're good on a fire. The theory on the hurricane is generally a hurricane is not a total disaster. Yes, we may lose all the roofs, we may have some interior water damage, stuff of that nature, but again, for the most part, we should have our structures left. So there's never really a reason to buy the full $234 million. Secondly, we can never afford to buy that much coverage. The current premium that the district pays right now is $2.4 million. Mr. Carroll asked me to present some different options. This is pretty much exactly the same 2 options that I presented to Flower Bluff about a month ago. Option A would be maintaining the $234 million of values. That includes all of our school buildings, all of our athletic field houses, equipment, scoreboards, turfs, everything you can think of that we insure within the district right now. But however, it would be buying $25 million of coverage rather than the $50 million that we currently buy right now. We're estimating that we could reduce the premiums about $430,000 by doing that. We potentially may have to take a little bit of a higher deductible in order to do that as well. But I would say the market this year is trending in the right direction. You guys saw about a 7% rate decrease this year. The last 2 or 3 years, we've been seeing 20, 30, 40, 50% rate increases. So last year was a quiet storm season. We saw the effects of that this year with rates starting to come down. We've got a couple more months to go, but fingers crossed and prayers that we don't see any activity. We should again see next year the rates start coming back down too. So I think these are conservative estimates, but again, a little footnote, just depends on what the market's looking at next year in January and February. But I do believe that we could get to the $2 million premium value there if we made that change. Option B would be looking at insuring only the essential operational facilities. By doing that, we reduce the total values from $234 million down to $211 million, and again, buying $25 million of coverage rather than the $50 million of coverage. So again, we're going to reduce what we're insuring on the schedule. We don't need the $50 million at that point. We can go even lower and go look at the $25 million loss limit options. We're estimating the premium there would come down to about $1.6, $1.8 million if we did look at those options. Again, probably wondering what's the definition of essential operational facilities. Mr. Carroll went through the list. We basically pulled off, again, athletic stuff, field houses, I believe like the
Storage
natatorium, storage buildings.
No, not the natatorium,
Oh,
natatorium's
sorry.
attached to the high school. I
Gotcha.
took off the FEMA domes,
FEMA
because,
domes.
hey, the FEMA domes are supposed to be able to withstand a hurricane. So,
Yes.
I took them off.
Matter of fact, Kingsville this past March, they removed theirs as well. Their theory, and the board's theory was, hey, these were built to withstand these storms, why are we insuring this thing as well? So again, those are the buildings we took off. Again, we obviously need to make sure we're insuring our schools, food service, those types of things. The buildings that we need in order to educate the children here at Delos Midway. Any questions?
When you say pretty much similar to what Flower Bluff is, what's the difference?
Just your values. So Flower Bluff's got about 280 million in values right now, but looking at the same type of options. The difference also would be what they considered as their essential operational facilities versus what you would be considering as your essential operational facilities. I would say it's pretty similar though.
I included all the school buildings, the admin building, and maintenance, and that's it. I took off the athletic fields, I took off the domes, I took off storage buildings, external, non-direct instructional related buildings, which it's not a huge amount. I mean,
Yeah, those are the small. I mean, the big ticket items, if you look at it, it's, the turf. I mean, that's 1.8 million. Football bleacher improvements, press box, that's 1.1 million. Those are some of the bigger ticket items. The new tennis courts, those 2.5 million. So it starts to add up. It's about a $23 million reduction in the values.
$23 million?
Yes, sir. There's between the 234 and the 211. There's, all the schools in the area are having to make difficult decisions right now, right?
So
Again,
what
like you said,
happens-
we have a funding problem, not necessarily an expenditure problem, but we've got to cut expenditures to meet the funding that we're getting.
Yeah. So what happens when we get through this deficit and we want to go back the other way? Is there an incurred cost? Is there?
Yes, sir. So we at whatever point you get to, I mean, if we get the funding problem fixed in the next year or two, and you guys say, hey, we got more money now, we can afford the insurance, hopefully by then the rates have continued to come down even further.
Yeah,
We
hopefully
can
the
add it back on
There's no
the
penalty though.
No, sir, there's no.
Based off rates only, not, you don't penalize us for
No, sir.
going lower and, okay.
Kingsville, just for informational purposes, this past March, they were probably the first ones that we saw in the area make these difficult decisions. They came to me last year and said, hey, we've got X amount of dollars for property insurance, that's all we got, tell us what we can buy. We got about 180 million in values, they bought $15 million of coverage. So,
What was their coverage?
they bought 15 million.
What's the difference in distance from the water from Kingsville to us?
Oh, I don't know, it's a good question.
Like a hurricane?
Yeah, good
I mean,
question.
they're a little bit further
A little
out
bit
than we
further.
would be.
They're a
Yes,
little
sir.
further inland, yes.
That would be something for us to have to consider.
What option did Flower Bluff?
They're still by Baffin
They
Bay.
didn't take
They
any
got
action.
water coming in right there too.
It was just for informational purposes. I think Chris went up there Friday with Sharon at Port A, and they're all testifying in front of the legislature to hopefully get some more money.
And also keep in mind, any change I do to the insurance, it's got a half-year effect because our current policy is good until March the 1st. So the impact on next fiscal year would be half. Any savings I could estimate, I'd only put half of it in the budget.
And the savings would be, I'm sorry, these glasses are thick.
We went option A, it's more or less 400,000 over here. It's 6 to 700,000.
I think it's between like 6 and right under 800,000 on the other one. And of course, that's dependent, like he said, it depends upon the market, it depends upon what the markets look like when we're going out in the
So option B is about 700,000 with a lot of prayers.
Yes.
Very much.
And higher
Get
premiums.
Ellen DeGeneres involved, maybe
Yeah,
she'll
right.
build us
Yeah.
a gym.
But again, the kind of the way we've had these discussions at their districts is the athletic stuff, the buildings that were improved, all that kind of stuff. These are just hard times. We got to do what we got to do. At the end of the day, y'all's job and y'all's objective is to educate the children of this community, right? The rest of that is benefits of being a student here. And unfortunately, these times we've got to make some tough decisions. We had a storm come through. don't have baseball lights at the stadium or whatever, we might have to play games during the day for a year or two till we can get that stuff back and collect the dollars from FEMA. It's not a good situation, but at the end of the day, our objective here is to educate the children.
Well, and we would not be the only district around here that would be losing those facilities. Everybody around us would be losing them too. So every district would have to be making adjustments around us.
Playing football on Saturday afternoons, I guess.
I'm not comfortable, thinking about this, the risk and the exposure, but it's the reality.
So in the, how many years you've been here?
14.
In the 14 years you've been here, how many times have we needed to use this insurance for those amounts?
Yeah.
So that's something we need to think about, right? Like, that's what I think about at my house, my car deductibles, right?
I
Like,
think Chris told me at Flower Bluff, they haven't used anything in 20, 25 years.
At least.
it's just something to think about, right? Like,
But,
We were very fortunate at Harvey.
yeah, I mean,
All Harvey
if we
did
would've been
was
further south than we would have.
knock down a fence and bent our goalposts. That's all Harvey did. We were very fortunate.
Any data from Celia in 1970, if
Good God, no,
Is
so I
that-
don't have any data from then. I do know, I did hear the story that the only thing left standing was the vault. This admin building pretty much got wiped out. The only thing that was, and then they built the new admin building around where the vault was. I did hear that story. So,
Again, everything was totaled out around us. I mean, everything was gone.
yeah.
For
So-
Celia?
So this is probably something we wouldn't even have brought before you if we didn't have a revenue problem.
well, I think this is the stuff we need to be thinking about. These are tough decisions we gotta make.
Yeah.
Because you're right, that's the biggest thing. We gotta educate our students and take care of our teachers and our staff.
Yes, sir.
If we can find ways, we gotta find ways.
So if there is a way, we should, if you want to be good stewards of the dollars of the taxpayers, would be to go with option B, right? And pray a lot.
Is that a decision we can make
That's what it's-
today, or is
You-
this?
You can make it today, it's an
Yeah.
action item.
Can I make a recommendation? And you guys can do whatever you want. I don't know that you want to make a decision on what to do until we know what the numbers are.
Okay.
So if you guys vote, hey, yes, we want to reduce this to 211 million, that tells us now next March, that's the only thing we're going to get a quote for, correct? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Why don't we bring both these options to you next March, and then you can make the decision based on the real dollar savings, so you can see what the actual dollars are. But just instruct us.
How are you
I
gonna
guess the
manipulate
only
your
thing I want you to
budget?
take action on, or you verbally tell me, what option would you like me to put
quote.
into the budget
Yes.
that I'm asking
For
you
the
to
half a
adopt?
year.
That I'm asking you to adopt next
So they're not
month.
gonna vote, you're just gonna get a consensus.
Consensus.
But not purchase until March.
Right.
That's correct.
And it will only affect half of the fiscal year.
Yes.
That's
So-
correct.
So I guess I'm asking for your input on what option would you like me to put in the budget we adopt next week? That's what I need your input on.
I think D would be good. A lot of prayers.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I think,
agree with
I think
B.
B has to be the option. I mean, we were talking about earlier, 600,000 is not much, and the only ones that are gonna save us 400,000, well, gotta go above 600,000.
Yeah.
So you've got your
I've got my
marching
guidance.
orders.
But you'll remember that, that's another thing in the budget that's got an asterisk by it.
No.
So when you ask me,
We're gonna
that's
hold
not
off
what you
on
told
that.
me.
Got it.
Until we
Yeah,
actually have
yeah,
dollar
yeah.
amounts.
No, you're
I got
right.
my asterisks too.
Yes.
There's always an asterisk. There's always an asterisk.
Always an asterisk.
I told you, they're my Angela asterisk, because, my wife will say, how long is it until we get there? And I think it's about 30 minutes. Well, 30 minutes later, she's like, you said 30 minutes, we're not there yet. I go, that was an estimate, that was a guess. So there's an asterisk by that, so.
So next question is, and I know we have Mr. Carlisle here, in March, when we renew, do we get other bids of what it costs for
Yes.
211 million, right? I mean, I know he's presenting and he's saying but hopefully he's gonna be competitive.
I'm gonna ask him for a proposal, and you can ask other people. For
Just to be fair and make sure, maybe there's
Did you hear that?
more
John?
money out there to save. I don't know, I'm sure y'all do well, but.
Yeah, just so you guys understand, on the property side of things, we access the entire global market. So y'all property insurance, like when we send it out every year, we send it to about 40 to 50 insurance carriers, all the way from Lloyd's of London to everybody here domestically. Then we put it together and bring back the best product and price on your behalf.
Okay.
So we're kind of bidding it for you every
I got
single
you.
year, but by no means, don't take that as the wrong way. You can call anybody else's if you want. But like right now, you'll have 5 different insurance carriers that make up that 15 million. So the market, when it shifted and started becoming harder, the carriers started pulling back the capacity, the amount of insurance they would deploy. We used to have one carrier, they gave us 100 million. But now they came back and they said, hey, we can't give you more than 25, so we've had to fill in other carriers to build out the 50 million. So as we buy less limit, I can remove more carriers from the placement, which is what helps drop the cost of the insurance.
Yeah, I was thinking more like Shaq and the General, let's see what they can do for it.
Yeah.
Just joking.
That was a good one.
All right, I got y'all's input, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to discussion/action item number 2, report only spring 2024 STAR EOC results.
I believe Ms. Chapa.
Hello.
Going to, I have asked David Crabtree if he takes any pictures, not to change the color of your outfit. So happy.
Good evening. We won't talk about the budget for this one, but we'll talk about students and education, which is kind of what it all kind of boils down to. So, well, yeah. So what's new this year in assessment? Well, we continue as a district to adjust to STAR 2.0 and redesign. We tested for the first time in December after blocking Algebra 1 and English 1 EOC, and we've had some great success, which furthers our initiatives from Warpath Academy. And we continue to integrate HQIM into the classrooms to improve the rigor throughout the district for both our students and staff. So we're all learning this year. What we're going to do first is take a look at the district as a whole and how they did in the spring. Okay, thank you. Okay, how they did in the spring compared to both the region and the state. So when you want to compare us to Calallen, Flower Bluff, GP, you're going to look more at the region and then of course across the state. So let's start right off the bat with our intermediate campus. So in looking at 3rd grade RLA, I want you to look at it from the grade as a whole. We're going to look at cohort later. Cohort follows the students. You all understand that, right? So right here in 2023, let me get my notes here. In RLA, we were a little lower compared to the state and region. And then in 2024, we were a little overall lower, especially in the areas of meets and masters. And you're going to see a lot of that, particularly with our lower grades, that we need to work on growth. And that's something that we as the curriculum instruction department and our principals have been talking a lot about and what we're doing. So that is an area we definitely need to work on growing as a district. In 3rd grade math in 2023, once again, we struggled in math compared to the state and region. And in 2024, we were comparable to the region, but overall lower in the state.
Can I stop you for just
Sure
a
you
minute,
can.
Ms. Champa? Can you explain the colors and just make sure we're all on the same page?
My apologies, yes. So what you want to see is green. Green is good. Green is the highest masters. The red is did not pass. The purple is approaches. So that means they pass, but barely. It's not where we want to be. We really want to be in the blue and the green area, and that is meets and masters. So green is good. Red is bad, and purple is okay, but that's not where we want to be. We want to stay within the blue and the green. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's all right. Any questions on that? Okay. So 4th grade, RLA in 2023, we fared better than the region and the state, but we dropped lower. Let's see, I'm sorry, let me look at that right. Grade 4, we dropped a little and scored lower than the state and the region in RLA in 2024.
And then in math, excuse me, go here. Overall, we had some struggles similar to the region and the state, but they were higher in meets and masters. So once again, the growth in the state and region did better than we did as a district. In 2024, we were at a significant drop in all of the areas, especially in meets and masters compared to the state and region. So you can see in the lower grades, we struggled in that, and we know that it's specifically in growth. What are we doing to remedy that? Well, we have Mr. Crabtree who is working. We're looking now at primary. What are we doing from the beginning? What are we doing, the C&I department, what are we doing to have students behind the computers? You know, they're all taking the test online now. And are the kids learning to type? You know, is it a struggle just having them hit everything? So there's a lot of things that are coming into play, and we're taking a really deep dive and an honest look at ourselves and what are areas that we need to do, what can we do to support the teachers to make sure that they're integrating all of these new measures to help students across the board. And that's something that we definitely need to work on in intermediate. I'm really excited with our new administrative staff. We have Ms. Lucas and Mr. Crabtree. They're both working diligently together. We're all working as a team with the curriculum instruction department to see what can we do. And I feel really confident that we're going to make some great strides this year. In grade 5, RLA, once again, 2023 did better overall compared to the state and region, and in 2024, overall higher scores, but in meets and masters, the state and the region did better than us. So we want to see growth. In looking at math, grade 5, in 23, we did better in the region, the state, including in the masters region. So we're seeing some good growth there. And in 2024, we dropped overall and didn't show growth. So in 24, there was a drop that we definitely saw off the bat. Grade 5 science, 2023 we scored higher compared to the region and the state, but in 2024 we dropped again overall, and the state was higher in meets and masters. That is something that we definitely took a deeper look at, and so what were we doing different from previous years, or what do we need to do? And I know in the area of science we already have a plan of how we're going to adjust.
Before we moved on to the next school, at the intermediate, we had a lot of curriculum changes, right? Do you feel like that played an impact?
And I'm really
in our
glad you
first
brought
year?
that up, Mrs. Villalobos, because I will tell you, what you're seeing from my perspective is the rebuilding. And in order to rebuild with HQIM, you're seeing the breakdown. And that's going to happen. But in order to build better and stronger, you're going to see HQIM was new to our staff, and they all adjusted as best they could in the short period of time. And so I think the scores that you're seeing, especially in the lower grades, is that drop. But it's because we're building better as a district. And curriculum instruction has been totally revamped, and we're really confident in what we're doing. I believe the teachers now have more experience with it. They're adjusting very well, and they're able to put in their special tweaks to make it better for the kids. But I'm glad you brought
We
it up.
also didn't have a principal for about half the year.
Well, we had a curriculum change and we had a test change too.
Yes.
The test changed.
That's the start.
So that's a big difference between 23 and 24.
Yes, ma'am. And I will tell you, we're going to do better on that. I think we, as a district, needed to look at what we were doing to prepare our kids for STAR Redesign 2.0. We could have done a better job, and we definitely recognize that. And we're already strategically planning how we're going to attack that this year.
So the state test chain could be a big part of it, right? Because you look, everybody really kind of
Especially in
took a
science.
dip, right? They all, it's not just us that took a dip, kind of everybody.
It's consistent across the state.
So moving into our middle school, I can't say enough good things, and you're going to see this here. In 2023, sixth grade RLA scored much higher compared to the state and region in areas of meets and masters. That's the growth that we're talking about. That's what we want to see. And they did a great job. In 2024, they continue to score higher in the state and region, especially in meets, which is the blue and the green, which is what we want to see. In sixth grade math in 2023, very high compared to the state and region, 10 points compared to the state in approaches, so it's still overall very good. And in 24, still overall higher, especially in meets compared to the state and the region. Really proud of our middle school and how far they've come. Seventh grade RLA in 2023, TM scored higher compared to the state and region in meets and masters. Once again, growth, which is what we want to see. In 2024, significantly higher in meets compared to both state and region, and in masters compared to the state, we're about the same. In math, seventh grade, 2023, TM fared much higher in meets and masters compared to the region and state. In 2024, TM scored better compared to the state and region, especially in meets, which is once again where we want to be. Eighth grade RLA. Let's see if I got that on there. Okay, eighth grade RLA, our district did very well. Once again, overall, we had less people failing compared to the region and the state. We had significantly higher in meets and in masters. We did better than the state in 2023. And in 2024, once again, you can see that we did much better in the area of meets and masters compared to both the region and the state. So, really proud of our eighth grade math. Once again, eighth grade math. What I want you to look at specifically is the middle school, because what you're seeing here is when we pulled the data, it was pulled with the students now being in ninth grade. So I don't want you to look at that, but we're going to look here at the high school because they were eighth graders. And I'm sorry if that's confusing, but that's what you said. So 18%. It looks like we had a little dip, but we did very well considering and compared to the region and the state in the area of meets, and then very comparable to the state in masters. And in 2024, you can see here, this now the data is back. It looks like we did exceptionally well in the area of overall passing compared to the region at 32% and 30% in the state. And then look at our masters. And that's what I really want you to see when it comes to the eighth grade math. 21% mastered compared to 12% in the region and 15% in the state. So
in that 2023 year, we had the top 53 kids take algebra, so they're not included in that. And they are included in this 2024, we did not test algebra in eighth grade this year. So that master's is pretty significant in the new year.
And kudos to Mrs. Arias, who's here, where she's taken the middle school in the past couple of years as far as growth. They are outstanding. Wish they could have, we could celebrate the A that they have. So we're going to say that as much as we can. I'm sorry, I went down to math. So eighth grade social studies. 23, overall much better compared to the state and region, almost 15% points higher than the region, 8% points compared to the state. In 2024, 5 to 10% higher in meets compared to the state and region, but lower compared to masters. But overall, I can say really proud at where our middle school is. And our eighth grade science in 23, similar to state and region overall, but higher in masters. 24, still overall higher than the state and region, but still better than the region in meets. So when you look at the middle school as a whole, they are showing growth. They really are. And it was a lot of work, and they did an outstanding job and should be commended as a whole, their staff and Mrs. Arias and the curriculum and instruction department.
How involved are they in helping Mr. Crabtree and you, or the lower grades? Because they've done such a great job.
I can tell you.
Brainstorming with them and.
Yes, Mr. Adiaga, I can tell you that I've never seen such a cohesive group, determined to figure out, ask the hard questions, look within ourselves, and find a solution. The principals are meeting, and we're meeting with the curriculum instruction department. We all know what our goal is, and we all know what we have to do. I mean, we look at this data and we just know we need to grow. We need to continue to do that. One campus, what are they doing? She's explaining, telling us, and really, there's no easy solution. It was do the work, face the music, and make it happen. And there's no magic pill or anything, and we're listening, and we're going to adapt.
Let me make sure there's no silos.
Let me give you a specific example of the teamwork of Ms. Arias and Ms. Lucas. Ms. Arias she had 2 instructional facilitators last year that were absolutely outstanding. Annalisa Wood and Ms. Huerta. Ms. Wood moved to administration, and we didn't fill that position. And Ms. Huerta, because of the struggles at intermediate, we we felt that she would be better with the lower kids, giving them the foundation. And we couldn't have made that switch without the support of the administration at the middle school. So that's the kind of teamwork that you're seeing.
And that's hard to get, to let go.
Very hard.
But that shows your confidence in staff and your teachers as well. So, okay. So now we'll look at the high school. And remember, with the high school, one of the big changes we did was we tested for the first time in December. So it's going to look a little different. In 2023, spring high school overall higher than the region and the state, especially in the areas of meets. In December of 2023, which is the first time we tested for first-time testers, only 14% did not pass. 86% did with the majority in meets. I think that's great data.
It's significant
It
data.
is significant. So testing for the first time was a risk, and I thought it was a risky move, but with the block scheduling and the teachers buying in and the principal support, they did really well. And then in spring of 2024, which is when they would normally test, the first-time testers, only 13% did not meet, and a whopping 57% mastered the STAR test, with 84% at meets and masters. Oh, that is something that we definitely know worked well. It was a success.
So I'm curious, Mr. Alvarado, can you walk the trustees through what happens in the spring semester with the retesters in Algebra 1 and English 1 that we hadn't had before?
So one of our biggest issues with any of those tests is that high school is unique in that it gets hit multiple times. So where if a kid fails in 7th grade ELA, you only get hit that one time because they move on to 8th grade. Well, in high school, it's a little bit different. In 9th grade, you get hit with them again in 10th and 11th until they pass. And we really didn't have a good mechanism to get those kids where they needed to be. So this year, when we tested in December, those kids that failed either the course or they failed the EOC, they just retook the exact same course again, but more targeted to what they missed we had the data. We had the STAR results that were, this is where you were short, this is what we needed to improve on. So that's helped out tremendously. So what you'll see is an upward growth because those kids, without any interventions, might have failed again in 10th and might have failed again in 11th. But now we're able to catch them a little earlier and do the right thing by them. And then hopefully in 10th grade, we'll catch them the very first time they test. So, but it's been really, the kids, I think are, this year as we're doing the same thing again, I think we'll see the benefit again as well.
The ones who pass also have another opportunity for an additional credit earning.
So this year, last year we were able to talk Coastal Bend College into giving us a sort of a mini-mester. They weren't able to do that again. They just didn't have the staff to pull that off. So what we're going to do is if they pass English 1, they're going to take English 3 at the same time the next semester. This will allow them to do a double practicum their senior year. So a kid's pathway would be English 1 first semester, English 3 second semester, English 2 all year sophomore year because that's a testing year. They would finish with English 4 and then either have the opportunity their senior year to pick up another practicum because most of our practicums are 2 periods, or take that college English that they might need. They haven't passed the TSI yet, they'll be able to take it as well. So it'll be lots of opportunities for our kids doing it this way.
At the end of all of it, how many, I guess, kids did not eventually pass one of the 2?
For English, I think it was just like 16%. So about 50 kids. What you're seeing a lot of the failure is the kids that already failed their freshman year, failed again their sophomore, failed again their junior. That's all lumped into one English 1 test.
I see what you're saying, okay.
And if they failed English 1, they probably.
Even more repeated retakers.
They're gonna hit you a bunch.
So
Now, it can, in a testing cycle, there's 3 bites at the apple.
How many
freshmen failed after,
First-time testers?
First-time testers.
It was an aggregate of 14% failed, I believe.
Because they can take 3 tests in the summer,
14 in December.
December, and the
So
spring,
that 14
and you only get hit once. But where you get hit multiple times if they fail all 3, and now they're the next year.
yeah.
When they took.
I guess I was just, yeah.
That 14%
Children
became like
or percent?
9%.
Oh,
So like
I'm
a total of
asking-
9% did not.
About like 35 to 40 kids.
Yeah,
Out
like
of a class of
9% of 9% of the kids that tested in December. We did have a cohort of kids that took honors, and they did not test until May. So they're not even that top 50 kids are not included in this percent here. So that's even like crazier because all of those kids got meets and masters at the end, and that's without those top 50. Top 55-ish kids.
so I would think we would see more in the area of approaches, but look at our meets. And then if you
Yeah.
go into the spring, look at our masters. That's what we call the gray area. Sorry. Anyway, so, yeah, really, really, really good numbers. In English, too, in 23, overall, the high school scored higher, especially in meets compared to the state and the region. And in 2024, overall, more students, we had more students, we're looking here solely at high school here, more students overall passed compared to 25 and 26% at the state and region. And in Algebra 1, 2023, overall more TM students passed compared to state and region, with state performing higher only in the area of masters. In December of 23, that was our first time testing, only 16% did not pass. 84% passed, with 15 to and 11% at meets and masters. That's incredible, especially in math, which is an area that a lot of kids always struggle. In spring 2024, which you had a lot of those other testers that came in, we didn't have as many kids successful. But I think that's including the ones that have had multiple failures. And then in biology, as you can see, in 2023, we had more students at meets, and we were very similar to the state and region in the area of masters. In 2024, once again, we were very similar to the state and the region in approaches, and in meets, we were higher than both state and region, and in masters, we were very comparable. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that there is definitely room to grow. Somebody once said, good stands in the way of great. And we know a lot of areas we're good, but we want to be great. And I think we're on the right track. You're going to continue to see a strong foundation as we rebuild and learn from each other and see where we want to go forward. Our kids are improving, and I'm going to ask Ms. Kanamuni to come up and to go over the cohorts where it follows the students. I think that's extremely important, and that's what we want to look at. Our kids improving, and you're going to see that they definitely are. And I'm confident with adjustments to the team collaborations, we'll continue to see growth and exceeding state in the region, and the work continues. So
Before Kenneth starts,
Sure.
we haven't received a letter grade. Dr. White, have you calculated?
I'm close, I'll be another day. I'm working on the domain 3.
I think what you're going to see is disappointment in the letter grades, because when there's a scale on the progress and the economically disadvantaged that puts us behind the 8 ball. That sounds like an excuse, but it isn't. It's a fact. When you look at our 6th through 11th graders in the, how many tests do we have 6th through 11th grade? 15, and then there's 3 categories. We scored higher than the region and the state in 97% of those categories. But I don't think that'll be reflected in a letter grade.
And that completely understandable. They explained to all of us at the school board conference, and that's exactly why
Yes.
it's being heard in Travis County. Like,
It's just going to be a hard, TM, one of the reasons that I was attracted to TM, it's very proud, has a high tradition of student performance. It's going to be difficult to communicate that to the community, but we'll do our best. We believe in our teachers, we believe in our kids, and we believe in our system.
Okay, so this looks really, really busy, but we wanted you to see that kid to kid, our kids are growing significantly. So these are our third grade first-time testers, and this is all in reading. So third grade first-time testers. These are our fourth grade, what they did as fourth graders, and what they did as third graders. So they went from 73 to 76, from 41 to 40, and 14 to 15. So they are, our current fourth graders in ELA grew by about 3 percentage points. And 1 percentage point where it really matters, which was the meets. Then our current, well, now sixth graders, then fifth graders, you have their historical data over 3 years of testing. This is a small concern because we went from 80, 82, 79, 51, 46, 51, and then we're back 33, 17, 21. So we're swinging in the right direction. We had a rough year in 2023, but we all know that in 2023, that was the first year of 2.0. This was the first time that they ever wrote any constructed responses, and we're addressing that even at the primary now. So, and you'll see that in the profile of a graduate in a little bit. And then same thing here, we've got 2021, 2022, 2023, and we took a little bit of a dip in 2024 for our current seventh graders, sixth graders. And you can just see like grade by grade where they went. Now, 2 things hit our kids. 2023 was the new test. And then this group of kids, this group of third graders here is the last group of kids that had any foundational COVID. So after this third group, this third grade, we should never hear the word COVID again. It should never be a factor. None of the kids beyond this third grade group missed a foundational grade level. So this is the last opportunity here. This is the last groups or cohorts of kids that'll have that as an effect. But you can see we're making up the ground. It's really not a factor for us anymore, except in some small areas. So 7th graders that are now 8th graders, we're moving back up after that new test and the redesign, so that's good. And then 8th graders last year, 9th graders this year did really, really well all across the board. They went from 84 to 85, 59 to 64, and 30 to 32. So you had a significant growth in those kids as well. Freshman English 1 testers, we did take a big dip here, but this number includes all of the kids, the retesters, the everything. This isn't the disaggregated first-time testers, so it's kind of a misnomer. See them. And then this is English 2. And how they've historically done, they ended up much higher than they ever were. All the way through. Like they started at 69, 36, and 16 before COVID. And so you can see how we've grown them over the years. They are a higher group of kids than they've ever been right now. And you can do that for all of the different cohorts. Now where it gets a little, is math. Math takes a little dip, but we know we started new curriculum here. We know we've got some growing to do there, but in most cases, the meets and masters did improve. So we went from 30 to 32, 8 to 13. So while we took a slight dip overall, our rigor is getting better. And this 4th grade, this is 5th grade, 6th grade, you can see sort of the same trajectory. This one takes a little bit of a ouch, but that's okay. And then this one takes a big ouch. But we're okay. We're gonna make up for it. It'll be all right. These are current 8th graders. So we know in that 8th grade, we are gonna put back in those algebra kids. Those aren't gonna come out. So
Stop for a second. Mm-hmm. On the 7th grade 24, we're still above the state region.
Yes.
And isn't that traditionally
the
a much different test?
Yes. Okay. It is an 8th grade test without a calculator. There are 3 state standards that they teach in 8th grade that they don't teach in 7th grade. The rest are the exact same. And in 8th grade, you get a calculator. In 7th grade, you do not. So you do take a historical dip in 7th grade. And you can see that all the way across. Like you can see that.
What?
It's so frustrating.
Oh, it's so frustrating, which is why some of the districts that are moving to like Algebra for All are skipping the 7th grade test. Now, a true math teacher will tell you, don't do that. They need to know how to do this without the calculator. But that's for the accountability purpose. Some districts are doing that. We're not doing that. But you can see like from year to year, every single cohort takes a huge dip in 7th grade. It's just a part of what happens. And then you can see current 8th graders and algebra. But again, this algebra one is sort of a misnomer because it includes all of the testers, not the first time. But we wanted you to be able to see that we are growing. I mean, every single group of kids, while it may look year to year lower, is actually higher than they were the year before. So, except with very few circumstances, and in those circumstances, we're still higher than the state and the region.
Have y'all continued to like, I guess, expand the graph to our 2028 plan and kind of see where the milestones need to be for each cohort to hit our goals for that?
That can be next steps. That's a great idea for next. We will continue.
Yeah, you take one step at a time each
We'll
year.
continue adding columns as we go, and we'll keep this for as long as we now have it. But we started looking at data originally, and we're like, oh my gosh, this looks crazy and not so great. But then when you look at it kid by kid, when we look at domain 3, we're actually going to come out on top on domain 3, I think. So domain 3 is growth, kid to kid, like my child, MJ Moody, did he grow from this year to this year? And I think in those circumstances, we're actually going to come out higher than we think we are in domain 3. But it's the hardest one to calculate, so it's the last one always. So that's cohort data. Iris, did I cover everything?
You have any questions, any comments?
Awesome information.
That's a really good job.
Thank you.
It helps explain it, the way the cohorts are set up and everything, because looking through that data, you can see it, but when you have someone explain it to you, it makes it much easier to understand it. Excellent job of all of you doing that every day. Very good. Appreciate it.
I like the color changes too. It's easy to follow.
That made it easier to follow.
I mean, it does look a little crazy if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, but when you see it that way and you see that that cohort is growing, even with a more difficult test, I think that's a testament to our system and what we're doing.
A few little hiccups.
A few little spots.
That explain it.
Yeah.
All right, great job. Thanks for that report. Moving on to number 3, discuss and consider approval of first reading of TASB Update 123 Local.
Dr. White?
Mr. Van Matry, Board of Trustees. This is just your annual local policy manual update. This time it's number 123. As you can tell, it is quite extensive with all the updates. In fact, I'd say pretty much across the board, every single section within the policy manual has been updated. So with that said, we do have the video, so you can definitely review at the video.
Hello, and welcome to an overview of local policy recommendations included in Update 123, presented by TASB Policy Service. Update 123 covers recommended local policy amendments to address several remaining laws from the 88th legislative session. Other provisions included in this update are in response to changes to the administrative code. As mentioned in the Update 122 overview, some of the new laws require the Texas Education Agency or other state agencies to develop rules or guidelines to implement the new laws. Some of those newly developed rules and guidelines impact local policy. While not covered in this overview, many of the legal policies included in this update were also affected by legislative changes and amendments to state rules that are now in effect. For information regarding those legal changes, review the explanatory notes included with authorizes the Attorney General to require trustees to complete Public Information Act training if the Attorney General finds the district violated the Act. Your current policy language delegates the responsibility for PIA training on behalf of newly elected or appointed board members to the Public Information Coordinator. The new language clarifies that PIA training imposed specifically by the Attorney General cannot be delegated and must be completed by the individual board members. While state law establishes specific conflict disclosure requirements for board members, the recommended language in BVFA Local would address the ethical duty of a board member to disclose a financial or other personal interest in a board transaction or decision beyond the statutory requirements. The new text recommended in this policy demonstrates a commitment to avoid undue influence, increase transparency, and avoid the appearance of impropriety in public dealings. Policy CCGB Local is only included in the update for those districts that currently have the policy and also have existing Chapter 313 agreements with entities that provide limitations on appraised value. On December 31st, 2022, Chapter 313 of the Tax Code, which is also known as the Texas Economic Development Act, expired. Agreements in place before the expiration of that law can continue in effect. Since new applications for limitation of appraised value are no longer permitted, the provisions relating to the application process are recommended for removal from the policy. On September 7th, 2023, TEA released model standards to assist districts in developing procedures to notify parents of violent activity that has occurred or is being investigated at a campus or other district facility or at a school-sponsored activity. New provisions in CKC Local direct the superintendent to develop procedures that provide for these notifications. Also, for districts that previously had text at CKC Local providing for the board to authorize employees or board members to possess firearms on campus, that text has been moved to the appropriate code in the CKE series. House Bill 3, passed during the 88th legislative session, required school districts to provide for adequate security of its campuses. Since that legislation was enacted, many districts formed their own police departments, entered into agreements with local law enforcement for additional school resource officers, authorized district employees or board members to possess firearms in the capacity of a guardian or a marshal, or contracted with security personnel. The CKE policy series includes CKE, which addresses security personnel in general and instances where a district has more than one type of security arrangement. Policy CKEA deals with district commissioned peace officers. CKEB contains information regarding school marshals. CKEC covers school resource officers, and CKED includes information about other security arrangements, including contracted security. Policy CKED also addresses employees or board members authorized to carry firearms on district property, who are commonly referred to as guardians. The revisions to the policies in the CKE series are recommended to provide additional guidance on the topics of non-school employment of district police officers, authorization of school marshals, the responsibilities of marshals and guardians, and revocation of authority for school marshals. Closely review your district's update packet, including the explanatory notes. They will provide information on changes to any CKE series policies included in your district's manual. TEA consulted with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission to develop model health and safety guidelines for the effective integration of digital devices in schools. The law requires the board to adopt a policy for the effective integration of digital devices in the district. In adopting CQC Local, the board incorporated guidelines prepared by TEA and the HHSC. The provision in this new policy states that the board adopts the model guidelines and directs the superintendent to develop regulations to implement these guidelines. intended to clarify that a non-Chapter 21 contractor can request a hearing with the board when their contract is terminated during the contract term. With the current structure of the CKE series and a planned restructuring of the DIA and FFH series on discrimination and harassment, it is necessary to adjust cross-references in the complaint policies DGBA local, FNG local, and GF local to reflect the series instead of a specific code. Amendments to the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook prompted revisions to policy EEH local. A student may now receive homebound services for psychological conditions as well as medical conditions. The policy has been updated to reflect this change. The Student Attendance Accounting Handbook also indicates that the weeks of confinement due to a medical or psychological condition do not need to be consecutive to qualify for homebound instruction. The policy has been revised to remove this consecutive weeks requirement. House Bill 900 from the 88th legislative session amended state law to require the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, with initial approval by the State Board of Education, to adopt standards for school library collection development for Texas public schools. The standards require a local policy, which is coded at EFB local. In response to a policy alert emailed to districts on February 14, many districts adopted the recommended EFB local prior to Update 123. For all other districts, the recommended EFB local has been included in the update. The new policy includes provisions to comply with the standards for the state board rules. In EFA local, the recommended revision makes selection of items from the list adopted by the State Board of Education optional instead of mandatory based on current law. The list of individuals who can submit a request for reconsideration of instructional materials has been revised to align with the list provided in the new EFB local. The majority of districts currently have policy EF local, which covers both instructional materials and library materials. If this applies to your district, you will find when reviewing your update packet that EF local is recommended for deletion and the new EFA local addressing instructional materials has been added along with the EFB local addressing library materials. If your district had already split EF local into EFA and EFB, your board will only need to consider revisions to those codes. That covers the local policies in Update 123. We hope you find this overview helpful. Should you have any questions or want further clarification, please contact your assigned policy consultant, and don't forget to notify us of board action on this update using Policy Online.
Yes, sir. Are there any questions? Anything needing clarification or?
I was gonna say, HB 900, that's probably the one that it puts more risk on the district. Yeah, what changes has the district made to ensure that harmful material isn't in the hands of students?
As in like from what we've done in the past to what we'd be doing
Because
now?
it was past the last legislative session.
Correct.
So
We didn't adopt at that time. We still kept it
Correct.
through instructional materials rather than bifurcating as we're kind of doing right now with the new EF series. So to answer your question, since we're not quite there yet, we're kind of in the preliminary talks with the media specialists currently about these policy changes. I can tell you that the changes do make them uncomfortable just because what they've done in the past has kind of worked and has been kind of, more in their control, whereas it does feel like the state is kind of taking some of that control away. through a different type of process that allows for more opportunities to kind of either vet or, throw out disagreements or wanting to appeal certain decisions. And so I will continue to have those conversations with them to learn
Yeah,
if we're going to do anything different or not.
Once we pass this, I would like to know a timeline for us to feel that we're in accord.
Sure.
Any other discussion or questions? Changes? Okay, that was first reading only, no board action needed. Moving on to number 4, report goal progress measure, number 1.
We have Ms. Kenna, Dr. Shum. As you know, we try to bring monthly updates from the strategic plan. This is our most important goal progress measure, number 1. And we have a presentation for you tonight.
I get at least smells on it.
That's what I told the teacher. That's different because we have to work with kids. I don't want
Do we have the slide deck?
It's fine.
It's in there, but it's like protected, so he has to let me in.
Protected. This one's protected.
It's
The budget wasn't protected. Accountability wasn't protected, but the goal progress monitor is protected.
Do you want me to just log into Canva?
I'm going to enjoy that.
I'm doing it the other way. It's because the email's taking a while to get to me.
There we go.
I just shared it to you. Did it the other way.
As long as the kids are protected.
Yes, of course. Yes, they have to be protected. Did you get the message?
Yeah, now if you go in, you should be able to do it.
Just have to have here, DoorDash people, any delivery has to be vetted, just like
$22 for a chicken biscuit.
We got access.
It's good to have access.
Okay, sorry about that. So district goal number 1 is 90% of the students are, will have met standard in the TMISD student readiness profile, which breaks into 3 parts: academic, social, emotional, and technical development. And so we spent last year developing this with teacher committees. I think we've presented on this a couple of times, so I'll just kind of scratch over what we've done and then where we're currently at and what we're moving to. So it's obviously, the purpose of it is to give our community that seal of approval. These kids have been through this with TMISD, so that when they're faced with a job between a different district kid and our kid, our community knows what our kids have experienced. For this year, this current year, and the following school year, it'll be in all of the transitional years. We will move it in the 25-26 school year to every single grade level. So that's 2nd to 3rd, 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and 12th grade. We started at the district strategic planning. That's where this idea came from. Then we had teacher committees, and they worked with each campus together. So our 9th grade teachers sat with our 8th grade teachers, and our 6th grade teachers sat with our 5th grade teachers, all the way down in each transition to develop the rubrics I didn't print those for you because those are going to be evolving as we go through a pilot year. So once we go through that pilot year, and I'll explain that just a minute. Then we took them to the student groups, and the students were probably our best feedback. They were very insistent on some things, and then like, no, we don't need that on others. And so we did do some adjusting based on the student feedback. So in July, we reviewed their input, made a couple of changes to the 12th grade one, which will then be back down to the other things. And then July through September, we're conducting all of our staff introduction meetings. So I'm presenting to every staff member in TMISD this process and what it is and where it will be going. That way they can start to acclimate their ideas that this is going to drive our work. You're going to have to do some things differently in your classroom to make sure that you provide opportunities for kids to stretch their technical skills or kids to stretch their social emotional skills on top of the academic needs in their classroom. I've so far met with middle school and high school. I'm scheduled to meet with primary, and then I'm scheduled to meet with all of them just in this month. And then, so in September, after we meet with every campus, after I'm done with that process, we will choose pilot teachers that volunteer or that, might get nudged a little to voluntold. And those teachers will be in those transitional years, and they'll essentially, in the middle of year and end of year, start collecting baseline data for us, just with their pilot group. So if you're an English 2 teacher, you're not going to do all 100 and whatever kids you have. You're going to collect a sample from your one period that you might choose. If you're a 2nd grade teacher, you're going to take your 2nd grade kids. So we're looking for pilot teachers. October to May, once we have our pilot teachers, we'll meet routinely to reassess the rubrics. Is this even feasible? Do we need to involve other stakeholders? That kind of conversation. And then in May, we'll take the baseline data. So a lot of the academic data is easy to collect. It's the other stuff that's harder. And so we'll be collecting that through the rest of the year. May through June, we'll take that baseline data, make adjustments to whatever rubrics we have. And then June through July, we'll prep for it to go into effect for all kids in those transitional grade levels in the 25-26 school year. 25-26 school year. In the 26-27 school year, it'll be for all kids. Now the big thing here is we are planning a digital rollout in the 25-26 school year. It'll be housed in a digital platform. Right now, we're not rolling it into a digital platform because we may be adjusting things elsewhere, and so it didn't really make sense to do that. So right now, it'll be housed in a manila folder, old school, but just in those pilot classrooms. This is what our current logo looks like. This is what you would consider our graduate readiness profile. So essentially the three common skills with the things that we committed to in our strategic plan, surrounding that and being woven throughout. Now I've asked our graphic design teacher, I've asked everyone that I have met if you have any skills with graphic design. This is my very layman's Canva attempt at some sort of logo that kind of puts everything together. And the interesting thing about accountability was that's what our kids talked a lot about, was accountability. Personal accountability, they put it on their notes, was one of the things that they were concerned with. Their peers taking accountability. So that was an interesting conversation for kids. So if you have any graphic design skills.
I like the graduation hat in the middle.
I did get somebody said on the social emotional to flip that so that it goes this way, and I have not figured out how to do it. I can't remember how I did it in the first place, so I can't figure out how to flip it, but I will flip it.
Oh, I bet there's a kid that can do it.
I'm sure there is. I should probably send it to what it is. But yeah, that's the one piece of feedback that I've gotten, is to switch that around so the wording is downwards, which I will eventually figure out how to do, or I'll find somebody who can. This is a sample rubric. Two of the things this is the 12th grade one, and I didn't print them for you because, again, like I said, they're going to be changing. But some of the interesting comments from the students, they were really, really interested in financial literacy. And they really were insistent that we were responsible for that. And we agree. They want to get out of high school, and they want to know how they're going to live in the economy that they're currently surrounded with. So that was one of the things that we did add to the rubric. It was in the rubric to begin with, but not as much of a focal point as it's going to be. And then the other thing that they were really interested in was mock interviews. They wanted to conduct interviews where somebody sits with them and fake interviews them, and they watch themselves or they video it or something like that. So we included that as well. And then lastly, one of the things that came out of the student conversations was a post-high school plan. So if you want to have a car and a house and 2.5 children in the future, what is it going to take the year after you graduate to start getting to that goal? If you want to have a job as an engineer, what is it going to take? If you want to go into the military, what is it going to take? And the teacher that does that or the counselor that does that with them will help them in their first step outside of high school. So they'll say, if you're going into military, we're going to help you get with the right recruiter, with the right person. If you want to go into the business industry using your IBC, like a lot of our welding teachers are working with kids already doing this work, then we're going to get you connected with a company that can do that. Our dental teacher is really good at this as well. So is our vet tech teacher, getting kids in utilizing their IBC.
But we're going to do that across the board for all kids.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, in the pilot year, it will only be in the 12th grade, 9th grade, those transitional years. The post-high school planning will come their senior year. Now, we may go through this pilot and say that really needs to be a junior year thing or a sophomore year thing so that they have high school to plan that. And once we go through that discussion, then we can back it down to a different grade level. Because I think that's what's going to end up happening. They're gonna recognize that, you know what, freshman year I wasn't really paying attention, but sophomore year, if I want this, I've got to get here. So I think it'll eventually back down to those other grade levels, but currently it's in our 12th grade one. So, and really that's modeled after what we already do with special education students. When they transition out of high school, they do a transition plan. So we've talked with our special ed director, you know, what are the questions that you ask? What does that look like in an ARD? You know, what are some common languages that we can use that would carry that same practice that we do for our special education students to all kids? Because it's an important part of planning. So when we were researching, many other states require this already. They have to advertise it on their websites. It has to be a part of their campus improvement plans and all of that. So one of the school districts that I really liked was called Byron ISD in Minnesota, and they thought I was an absolute lunatic when I called them. I've met with them several times now. We've met with them, and they've given us some feedback. Their main thing that they said to us was, do not rush. And so we're not. We are going very slow into this process. But I wanted to share with you some things from their district that we're really captivated us in the work that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to show you two videos if that's okay. This one's about a 3-minute video.
Over the last 10 years, education has changed so much. I think about what kindergarten used to be, not only when I was a kid, but even when I started my career as a teacher.
The days of sitting in rows, a teacher lecturing is and should be over. You got to get people moving, you got to get people interacting, because many of those type of job settings are going to be like that. We want to be thinkers. We want to be contributing members of society. We want them to be able to interact with the things that are before them in their lives.
The profile of a graduate is really understanding what a kiddo needs to be successful later on in life. So no matter what doors they want to have open for them after high school, they have access to all of those different opportunities.
In the profile of a graduate, we have a core knowledge component. We have our 6 C's on top of that.
Good graphics.
Creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, character, and citizenship. We also have a reflective practice circle. And each of those areas are vitally important for a human being to make the world a better place.
When you fall into the water, that's kind of like making a mistake, right? So what do you do after you've fallen into the water?
We're really want to give them experiences that can bolster their curiosity and cause them to love learning new information that connects with them in a meaningful way.
They like having their voice and choice. They get to pick, what am I going to work on today?
With my restaurant management 1 classes, we have the kids actually going out working at a local restaurant. They're getting the opportunity to actually create things and different recipes and menu ideas to put on the menus.
Learning how to get along with other people, learning how to work with others is valuable. Those skills will carry you a long ways and get you the jobs that you want.
I think every parent and every teacher wants their kids to be successful and happy in life. The only way we can do that is if we make sure that they have all of the skills that they need.
The best interest of our children is in our hearts every day. And when we are fully implementing our vision of this, I think we are preparing our students better for what's ahead of them.
And then lastly, our graduate readiness profile will culminate in a website or a LinkedIn site for all students. They'll start that profile in their freshman year. And we're 2 years away from that profile start as 9th graders. So our current 6th graders would be our first set of profile collectors, or they would start it for us. But this is what it'll look like. I'm going to show you where the
I'm a senior at Byron High School, and I'm mentoring with McNeil Steel. Seeing what they do in this business and how the different types of engineering relate to this kind of work is really going to affect me on my choice to go to college, so I know exactly what I'm going to do after high school and after college.
At the end of our senior year, we will have a completed body of work, which will showcase the skills and abilities we acquired from our time in high school. This is our B portfolio.
The B Portfolio, it's a whole website of different categories that showcase your different skills and how you rate them yourself.
Down here I have an assignment for photography where we had to take different pictures of things and make it into a word. So I did the word home, taking things from all around my house and making it into that picture. I think it's a great place to hold all of the artifacts that I've created throughout high school and display them in a nice and organized way.
It allows me to collect all the things I've done, be able to reflect on previous work, and be able to showcase it to employers, colleges, and any third-party source.
To us, the journey is just as important as the destination.
So that's essentially what our kids will leave us with. It'll have a QR code that they can put on their resume. Employers or potential employers can log into it, see the artifacts that they deem as worthy for themselves to share with people. But in the work for teachers, what that means is that we have to create the opportunities. In a math class, what artifact can a kid gain from our class that would be important or relevant or would showcase a skill set that they have to a future employer? Not just that they can do this math worksheet, but what can they actually do and apply that math into a skill that they would use in the workplace. So that's where we're going with it. We're a little ways away from it, but we're working towards it. So welcome to hear your feedback. We've had some good feedback from teachers so far, and this is not just a single man thing. Like, we are all working on this project, and I know that teachers and the teachers that I've met with are pretty excited about it. They're a little worried about, what it's going to entail, but they're excited. So, and a lot of it we do. It's just capturing it and being purposeful with it. So.
Great job, Ken.
Yes. Gives direction.
When it was very hard for me to visualize what it was going to be until I ran into their website and I was like, this is it. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to number 5, discuss and consider approval of first reading of TASB policy EHAC local.
Dr. White?
Madam President, members of the board, this is one of 2 local policies that will be brought in front of you tonight for your review. The first being EHAC. If you can recall, a couple years back when we went through the off-campus PE ordeal, from that moment, The resolution with TA was passed where the district decided not to offer any longer the off-campus PE substitute credit at the high school. Interesting enough, over the last couple of years, and in particular this summer, we've received several calls from parents asking about that particular off-campus PE option at the middle school and wondering if we were offering that at the middle school. It turns out that we do not currently have a local policy that governs that decision. Therefore, what's in front of you tonight is what administration is recommending we move to, which is to make it clear that as we do at the high school, we will also not offer that off-campus PE credit at the middle school. So it's super clear in policy that that is our decision, streamlined 6 through 12, which then also would allow the parents to understand what exactly would be as a substitute or what could be seen as an alternative. So that is on the last page of the recommended local policy, and that can be found under physical activity in middle school during grade 6 and during grade 7 and 8. One of the alternatives would be for pre-athletics, for example. That would be a credit that would be substituted accordingly. So that is the local policy.
And first reading on.
First reading.
Any questions?
It's just clarifying what we already do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Feel good?
I was only gonna make one comment, and that was, yeah, you identify 6 through 8 as middle school. As bond is implemented, this would need to be
That'll change the
updated.
junior high.
Unless you just remove middle school and just talk grade levels now, and then you won't have to
Yes.
change it later.
Yes.
So either or, yeah, FYI.
Got it.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, very good. Any other suggestions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 6, discuss and consider approval of School Health Advisory Council members.
Madam President, members of the board, 2 items on the SHAC committee coming up. This is the first one. Dr. Ryan?
Yes, sir. So this is just for the annual, for you all's review. And at this opportunity, if you were wanting to discuss membership or recommend a member yourself, you're welcome to do so at this time. But as it's presented in front of you, the 24-25 SHAC membership is there. Many are returning. We do have a few parents that are going to be new, Mandy Alvarez and Oscar Medina. And so we're excited for the new year and for our membership to take us forward into what we will see for this semester.
Is the current person who teaches health on this committee?
Yes. And by health, are you asking like what specifically, like our CTE health or just like science health or like health, the elective?
Yeah, health, the elective at the high school.
No, not
Yeah.
exactly, but we can invite them or ask them to be a part of it if you'd like that.
Like, I would like to, yes, because of our second agenda item.
Is there a food service representative?
Yes. I'm sorry, her name escapes me. Flores, is it? Irene Garza. Irene Garza, I'm sorry. Usually, typically, we wouldn't put her as a member. She just is there as a non-voting member, just like myself. If you would like for that person to be an official member of the group, I can.
Yeah, that
If
name's
that's your
not on there right
preference.
now.
Because she does attend our meetings.
Typically, you have a food service person on there because nutrition. This is an action
This is an
item.
action item.
But as you know, you can add members as you would like.
This is your committee.
I think I agree with Denise that we need to add the person that teaches health at the high school for sure.
Who is that, Mr. Alvarado?
Coach Kyle. John Kyle.
Comments?
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the School Health Advisory Council committee members as presented.
I have a motion. I have a motion made by Ben. Do I have a second? A second made by Paul. I have a motion and a second made for the recommendation that the board approve the School Health Advisory Council committee members as presented. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to number 7, discuss and consider approval of School Health Advisory Council resolution on human sexuality instruction.
Dr. White?
So in continuation, from where we left off last year as a SHAC committee in 23-24 school year, the final meeting had a majority vote to initiate the public hearing process for recommending to the school board a curriculum for human sexuality instruction. There's been several conversations over the last couple of years as to whether or not we were wanting or were able to find a curriculum that we were all kind of okay with. And currently the committee has, I believe they have found at least one worthy of a public hearing review. And so this resolution is just being brought forward tonight to initiate that process so that we can bring a possible curriculum recommendation to you in the next month or so.
What type of statutory regulations does the board have regarding this?
It is your say at the end. We will recommend, but the approval is yours and yours alone. All you have to do is just listen to the recommendation.
Yeah, I will say, currently, everything is you opt into something that is sunsetting in the legislature this year. So it is prone to switch back to you have to opt out of something, which, I mean, that could be fixed prior to the curriculum being implemented, but it's even more important that we choose the most appropriate curriculum for our district.
At the most appropriate grade,
Yes,
age level
absolutely.
appropriate.
Yes.
What worries me is the community thinking that we're moving towards teaching sex education in the schools.
And so when I was on the SHAC committee, and we initially were looking at curriculum, it was the high school health teacher at the time who was very vocal on, at TM, we teach abstinence, and at TM, I go through the TEKS to make sure that they currently align with what the standards are as it changes, which is why I think it's critical we maintain that position on the committee.
Yes, and that the parents are thoroughly educated and have an opportunity to voice their concerns if they have any. And we have to respect that.
And I think in the past, the whatever was being shown was actually sent out to the parents where you could actually preview it and then be able to choose whether or not your child attended or not. So that was great, and with Parent Square, that will even improve getting that information out.
Those are critical safeguards.
But there's an opt-out, there's an opt-in.
Actually, it's an opt-in, yeah. More people will be exposed to the curriculum with an opt-out versus an opt-in. President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the resolution to convene the district SHACs to recommend curriculum materials for human sexuality instruction as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? have a motion made by Paul and a second by Ben. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution before we vote. For Tolosa Midway ISD to convene the district school health advisory council to recommend curriculum materials for human sexuality instruction, whereas section 28.004E-11 of the Texas Education Code requires the Board of Trustees to adopt a resolution convening the local school health advisory council for the purpose of making recommendations regarding curriculum materials for the school district's human sexuality instruction. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Tolosa Midway Independent School District hereby calls for the convening of the district shack to 1. Hold at least 2 public meetings on the curriculum materials before adopting recommendations to present to the board. Number 2, recommend curriculum materials that comply with the instructional content requirements in law, are suitable for the subject and grade level for which the materials are intended, and are reviewed by academic experts in the subject and grade level for which the materials are intended. 3, present the SHAC's recommendations to the board at the next regular board meeting that follows the second 2 public hearings. Adopted this 19th day of August 2024 by the Board of Trustees. So again, we have a motion made and a second for the recommendation that the board approve the resolution to convene the district shack to recommend curriculum materials for human sexuality instruction as presented. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to number 8, public notice, federal grants applications.
Dr. White?
Yes, and this again, just another annual update as we get inch closer to the application deadline of September 1st. These are our typical applications that we submit for each school year. That would be ESSA, which is our title program, our SPED Consolidated, which is our IDEA formulas, and then our Perkins CTE is our state and federal grant to support career technology. And then as Mr. Carroll alluded to earlier in the meeting, our school safety standards grant, which has already been awarded, but it lasts, I believe, until 25-26. And so you'll see that appear as part of our overall entitlements for our applications. One comment I can make about the typical 3 that we receive annually is that our planning amounts have been reduced just a little bit based on our enrollment. And so as we see our enrollment increase once again, we should see in the future our planning amounts, our entitlements go up as well. And so we're getting out of that kind of dip that we've kind of been talking about. This is kind of where I see it, at least on the student side with our applications. We will hope to see that number trend upwards for next year when we do the applications for next school year.
Any questions? Discussion? Kind of straightforward. All right. That was for report only. No board action needed. Moving on to number 9, discuss and consider resolution for extracurricular status of the 4-H organization.
Dr. White?
Another annual for you guys to review. This time, as you can recall, the 4-H organization, that's an extracurricular activity, and what this what your approval would do would allow for that 4-H, any of those FFA events to also double up as ADA, and therefore we would treat it just like we would a field trip or a school-sponsored event, and we would be able to count our students who would be at an event but not necessarily on campus or in attendance in the classroom. We'd be able to count them the same as if they were in the classroom for regular attendance.
And I think that's going to be a big deal this year with us only being out the 3 days of the livestock show.
I'm not sure.
Monday and Tuesday,
to see that.
They may need that.
And that's the thing, we will monitor that, knowing that that's different for us this year. And so we'll follow with the high schools to make sure they have the list pre-made so that everybody knows who's going to be going where, and we'll make sure all the coding gets done properly.
All right. Any questions?
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the attached resolution from Nueces County regarding the extracurricular status of the 4-H organization as presented.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution. Extracurricular status of 4-H organization, be it hereby resolved that upon this date, the duly elected Board of Trustees of the Tolosa Midway Independent School District, meeting in public with a quorum present and certified, did adopt this resolution that recognizes the Nueces County, Texas 4-H organization as approved for recognition and eligible for extracurricular status consideration under 19 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 76.1, pertaining to extracurricular activities. Participation by 4-H members under provisions of this resolution are subject to all rules and regulations set forth under the 19 Texas Administrative Code as interpreted by this board and designed officials of this school district. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension will request academic eligibility for all 4-H competitive activities, regardless if a school absence is or is not required, and for non-competitive purposes when an absence is required. Again, we have a motion made by Ben and a second by Paul for the administration's recommendation that the board approve the attached resolution from Nueces County regarding the extracurricular status of the 4-H organization as presented. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and it is approved this day of Monday, August 19th, 2024. All right, moving on to number 10, discuss and consider approval of the adjunct faculty agreement for Nueces County.
Dr. White?
And so what makes this one just a little bit different than the first one is that as you approve the extracurricular event, the 4-H organization, anything 4-H related would afford the same ADA opportunity, whether that was off campus, so forth. The adjunct faculty agreement allows the partnership to be there where it doesn't matter if we are sending a teacher of record or a para, we have that partnership that allows that student to be counted for ADA based on the agreement in place with Nueces County. And so this could be mostly FFA related, but it could involve other types of activities or events that may not be 4-H sponsored, but just in terms of the AgriLife extension piece. Essentially what it does is it covers any sort of event or activity our students may be a part of for ADA purposes. And so it just kind of gives you kind of the full kind of scope of what we can do as far as extracurricular or outside events of school and the opportunity to count those events or activities for ADA purposes. This is another annual review.
Any questions? Discussion? Along with the other one. Yep. Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the adjunct faculty agreements with Nueces County as presented.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion made by Ben. I have a second. Second made by Paul. I have a motion and a second for the administration's recommendation that the board approve the adjunct faculty agreements with Nueces County as presented. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to number 11, discuss and consider approval of first reading of TASB policy EIC local.
Dr. White?
And so as we just discussed EHAC, this is now EIC, which is Academic Achievement Class Ranking. And again, just another policy update to make clear our practice that's currently in place and also to clearly define the new weighted grade system by tier category so that it just more easily referenced and something that we're already currently doing. So wanting to, again, put that into our policy, but also just making sure it's clear that as we make some small tweaks for clarification purposes, that what we are currently doing will not change how class rank is calculated. It is just simply to clarify and to put into practice what we are currently doing.
Mr. Alvarado, do you have any?
Sure. So the original local policy was written on a 6 weeks. We got rid of 6 weeks and we're on 9 weeks. So some of that had to change. We took it to the Student Advisory Council because that midterm grade in the spring semester of a kid's senior year does not fall exactly where a 9-week grading period would. So after beating it around with our SBDM and our kids, we kind of made the consensus that we're going to count for final rankings that last 9 weeks or the third 9 weeks, and then we're going to wait till midterm grades come for those kids who are at A&M Kingsville, Corpus, Tamuc, or Coastal Bend College and Del Mar. Once you get those grades will be used to calculate the final rank, even though they're not going to line up perfectly on the perfect date where that 9 weeks ends. But what you see here is we had to change it because there's no more 6 weeks.
We're going to go with the furthest date before we release.
Yes, the other option would have been the semester grade for the dual credit kids. I don't think that would have, I think the students made an excellent recommendation. And this is first reading only.
I was slightly confused on the two notes. The weighted of +10, that's for our current freshman, sophomore, junior, and then the CT weighted stuff that we approved a couple of meetings ago, that is for 8th graders.
So everybody's under the same system.
Not changing once you've started.
Any other clarifications, discussion, questions? All right. Moving on to number 12, discuss and consider approval of 2024-2025 T-test calendar and appraiser list.
We're keeping you busy, Dr. Blaine.
No worries. About to be off the clock. So here is another annual update that I'm sure y'all are most familiar with seeing. Two parts, the teacher evaluation calendar and the teacher appraiser list. And as you will see, all the administration is on there, principals, assistant principals, and the C&I department is also on there just as a backup or as a need arises for a third party to be asked to perform possibly another observation. So just giving us all the options available. And of course, with the calendar there, you have everything you need to make a decision. Are there any other questions?
All right.
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the T-test calendar and appraisers for the 2024-2025 school year as presented.
Have a motion made?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Paul. Do I have a second? So I have a motion made by Paul and a second by Paul for the administration's recommendation that the board approve the T-test calendar and appraisers for the 24-25 school year as presented. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Number 13, discuss and consider approval of TM board travel for the 24-25 school year.
Thank you, Dr. White.
talked about this a couple of meetings ago about how the district is trying to cut costs and how we as a board, we're on board with cutting costs also. So here is some breakdown of current travel costs per conference. And this is approximate because, I mean, we can't get into an exact dollar amount and an exact cent. So this is all approximate. But as you can see, for the MASBA convention, the cost there, the TASA TASB convention for September, and then our TASB governance camp in March, and then our TASB summer leadership, which occurs in June. We discussed doing 2 conferences, and then it was also suggested that we'd be able to do 3 conferences. So I have broken it down. So for 7 trustees for 1 conference a year, it's going to cost the district approximately $9,800. For 7 trustees to attend 2 conferences, it's going to be approximately $19,600. And for 7 trustees to attend 3 conferences, it will cost the district about $29,400. So I wanted to do this breakdown for 1 conference to 2 conferences to 3 conferences. I think all the trustees are aware that we can get our education requirements with 2 conferences without having to attend 3. And that we do need to do our part as the Board of Trustees to be cutting our budget just like everybody else is cutting their budget. Again, this can be reviewed yearly just like the rest of the budgets of the school district are reviewed. And as we get into better status with our budget, we can go back to attending 3 conferences or all conferences. But I think we need to work as a team and do our part as the Board of Trustees. So I open it up for discussion now. I just wanted to make sure that y'all had the information that you needed so that we could discuss it.
Well, I think it's fair for the community to understand that in the past 3 conferences, the last one that we went to, 6 board members went. The 2 before that, only 3 board members went. So there's a big drastic in cost that was spent by the district altogether. I mean, the last one we went to was only 6, so that's. But the 2 prior that, it was only Paul, Estella, myself, and Leo that went to those 2. So it was only 3 of us, not 7.
So that's even more cost savings for the district.
Exactly.
That's why we have not had all 7 members, as they call it, the complete board at summer leadership or convention or any of the conferences in probably 10, 15 years. So it's normally, like they said, it's been, a lot of times it's just been 2. And here recently it's been 3. And then like summer leadership was 6. The year before, I don't think it was 4. So, I can understand because that gives it a good basis by which to look at. But as long as we continue with the current pattern, I don't know how many people have signed up for convention this year. I don't know.
I have 2 board members going to TASA TASB in September. I have I don't want to misquote myself. One from MASBA, maybe 2.
Yeah. See,
So what I hear y'all saying is that you would rather move towards a dollar amount rather than a conference amount, like a number of conferences move towards a dollar amount, because there's no way to budget knowing 2 are going here, 5 are going here. We've got to figure out some way to be able to budget.
Yeah, but this gives us good basis from which to see. But it needs to be somehow, since we're not consistently going all 7 of us. especially like if the convention is in Dallas, not as many people go. Or when it was even in Houston, it'd be 2. I think the most was back in, was it 90? There were 5 that went,
I think these are all tax-funded trips for the board to do. Adding a budgeted amount for us as trustees is better, especially, to show that you said everyone in the next school year is going to cut by 10%. We should do that same thing as well. And there's also.
No travel on, unless it's federal funds.
Correct, yes. They're already cutting their travel budgets. There are conferences, just as many conferences for teachers and administrators that they're not going to or paying out of pocket to go to, and we should show that same regard as trustees.
true. And that's pretty much been the pattern.
No, I think taking a percentage off and a budget is the right way to go. I mean, I think this gives a little bit of this gives us an idea, but we don't want the public to think that we're spending $29,000 a year, because I haven't been to any conferences. Don't knock me, but I'm still getting my continuing education. But I think.
So that's also a good point. So you are able to get all your continuing education hours without even attending a conference.
Right.
Like, we could spend $0.
Right, but I
on
think
these
these
budgeted
conferences
items.
have a huge benefit. I think when Ben
I
and Paul and y'all come back
absolutely
and you tell me stuff, I'm like, man, that's good stuff. So I think we shouldn't limit the number. We should limit the budget. Ben's a entrepreneur, works for himself. He has more time to go than I do, and so that somebody's going from our group. Because if Ben hits his 2, and he's the most available to go, well, we still need the information. If Ben can get the 3 or Paul can get the 3 now that he's retired and fishing.
Because that's what I remember on 2 or 3 meetings back, I forget, when I said I've known several districts that they'll say 2, not just 1, 2 to 3, and they go, they come back and report to the others and everything, and then the others do it, and then they swap out, and some more go to a different one, because they're balancing it out.
Yeah, I think Benny said it, budgeted numbers good.
What we should have had also, and I would have liked to have seen it, is in these last 3 meetings or conferences that we've gone to, how much have we actually spent, Philip? I mean, do you have a figure on that? Because it hasn't been $29,400, because like I said, there was only 3 of us, and then this last one was only 5. Denise was there also. So what I'm saying is, in these past 3 conferences that we've gone to, what has been the figure spent? Because, for me, I don't come back and claim my food or my gas. So.
I can tell you,
Just worry about getting to the summer leadership and there not being enough money for all 7 to go.
Well, they still didn't go. The past 2 years, not 7 have not gone anyway.
Have we busted our budget in the last?
Expenditures as of today is 18, 19, a little over 19,000.
But that includes everything that the board has spent,
That is
including,
everything that's been expended to date, yes.
yeah, including some other stuff that the board has done, not just conferences. Is that
This is
correct?
all registration and all room and board. So it could be a registration for an online thing that you did or something that's.
But it's all education.
But it's anything to do with education. That's what y'all's travel is all related.
Okay, but the board
So
has
we're already
a
at
budget
this
for other,
19.
is
That is only the expenditures for what we're talking about.
and what was that total?
It's 18, 19, a little over 19,000.
Which already meets the 2 conferences per trustee.
And what's the budget we have for this stuff?
The Board of Trustees' total budget, it includes the biggest chunk is legal, but the total budget is 142,000.
Yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing. I think as a board, we're saying, don't handcuff us to two. Handcuff us to a dollar amount that shows we're making a move in the right direction to cut our budget, so that we're doing our part too.
So how do y'all suggest we get to that dollar amount?
We need Philip, I mean, that's a very, in there, I mean, Chrissy probably has receipts of what we've paid for, right? For this year for conferences, Chrissy needs to
I
come up with
actually
the
have it in
numbers.
front of me. I actually have it.
Yeah.
Give me one.
But that 19 is online registration fees, the PO number she gives me to do those, that's a lot of other stuff in there too, right?
It's what the board's using to get their $19,000 for us to get continuing education.
Right, but
whether
this is
that's
talking about
online or
conference fees. Right here, we're talking about conference fees. We're saying limit people to conference fees. So we need to know what that number is, because I don't think it's the 19,000, because some of it we're doing online, and we got the PO, and we pay $80.
I bet it's 18, like it's not gonna be.
What I had, and this was as of,
And does that include the coming conference also?
no, this is just up until y'all went to SLI. Because I can't even do anything for your September conferences yet, because we don't have our new budget.
Right.
Roughly, and these are just rough estimates, so don't hold me to it. But right now, for TASA, TASB in September of last year, y'all spent a total amount of $1457.45. For the
$1,400?
$1457.45. Yep. Okay. No, let me start again. Hold on.
We don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're
We just
right.
really
It's
do
that I
need
had
to
it-
help.
And I don't think it's like something we have to have right now even. I think it's the thought process behind it is,
Right.
we're
Well,
gonna limit the amount we can spend as opposed to the number we can go to.
Yeah, just right now, based off what I have in my little summary, I have a better copy in my office. It's about $17,000.
Does that include the reimbursements to the trustee for travel and meals and gas?
Yes, yes. And this does not include, I'll double check, but I don't think this is including those times I give you the PO number to go in and do registration
are, yeah.
classes.
So that is just conferences?
Yes.
That's just
this is
conferences.
Well, maybe the board members could also pay their own gas and food. You know, that would help a little bit also.
Yeah.
Because I haven't, in
I
4
don't-
years, I don't reclaim nothing.
Again, the purpose, I think we were saying we want to watch a budget, not a total amount we can go to. We want to watch a number, and that number, we want to reduce that number so that we're doing our part like everybody else.
Well, just, you know, if you're looking for Mike's suggestion, it would be the 7 trustees with 3 conferences, budget 4,000, because we're never gonna hit it, because nobody's done it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if we don't hit it, well, I mean, you know, that's still, I mean, I don't know, or,
Just the other part is the total budget of the board, right? Do we exceed that? Are we going to exceed that this year?
In the grand total, we're gonna go over, but only because of legal. If you take legal out, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So we take the 10% off the 140,000, you go down to 130,000. We got to figure out how to manage $130,000, right? That's what I'm saying. Just say
Yes,
a number.
a number amount, cutting
And then
it by
whatever that,
10%.
you tell us, hey, we just got to get better at everything. We got to get better with all that. So. That's my suggestion.
Which means communication would have to get, we would have to all communicate really well with what conferences we're going to and
At
attending.
the head of the budget,
To
yes.
make sure
So we
everybody
can
is being able.
forecast
Yeah, for sure.
what- I think that's, okay,
Yeah.
that's what we should do.
Yeah.
So, Mazba's this, how she has it lined out here, saying, next month, I can go to 2 or 3 of these, then we can budget that out and make sure we have the appropriate amount budgeted.
Correct.
But at the same time, so this past fiscal year, we spent 17,000 on the conferences. I really think there if we talked about cutting insurance for our school buildings at the very beginning of this board meeting, and now we're struggling with going lower than the 17,000. That's a hard pill for me to swallow.
I don't think we're struggling with going lower than that. We're just saying that you can't put a number on the conferences, right? Like, I think you're right, Denise, that it's minute in the grand scheme of things, the trainings. But I think we have to still provide ourselves flexibility that Ben hits his 2, none of us can go. If Ben's available to go to a 3rd.
No, yeah, so I agree with the forecasting conferences, and then we can see where the budget amount lands.
Right.
I personally would like it to be around the 17 or more, lower, because that's what we did this previous year.
Yeah.
Because you're referring to these 4, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the 4 conferences.
I got you.
That would be correct, about right. That's a good suggestion. It was not hard, not at all.
Well, and of course, if we get to the end and we've got another conference left and there's more money left, well then we figure out how all of us go and.
If that works out that way.
Okay, so we've decided we're looking at a percentage of a cut overall is what we're looking at. We're looking at 10%, or are we wanting to go lower than that, or whatever that percentage is to be close to the 17?
I say, yeah. Everyone say, or communicate to Chrissy what you'd like to go to, price that out. Next board meeting, you say, this is actually gonna cost us 17 grand, and then we're okay with that, or we're not okay with that.
That would be one way.
Yes.
The other way would be to take the 140 that's allotted to the board for total, 140K, 10% off that, 14,000. Right? Or you put 20,000, that gives you 120. As long as you don't use legal a whole lot.
Well, we might overuse the legal and not be able to go to any conferences.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Yeah, it just puts us, I mean, that's what it should do. It should put pressure on us to be wiser with what we got, our budget, right?
Absolutely.
We're all trying to get wiser with the budget. So.
To consider it and be cognizant of it at all times, no matter what action you take, whether it be board or trustee or
The only thing about the conference is that it is good for board members to attend, represent your district, because I think I've always come back and said, to Van Matry, well, we should be there. We should be presenting, we should showcase our kids. You go to Galveston, I want to showcase the kids, the school should do some sort of thing, so, yeah, I mean, it looks, that's what you get out of going to the conferences. The trustees learn a lot, come back and you talk to the community about it and stuff, and let them know that, it's not, all fun and games there. We do go to classes all day long, a lot more than I ever did when I was in school. That doesn't sound good, but that's the truth.
It's all day long. And the governance, governance camp, Galveston, that's where they really showcase the kids.
The kids, yeah.
And it's amazing. And I think are we still trying to have a presentation?
Not this year, not with the travel restrictions.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're at the discussion of y'all will email me and let me know which conferences you're wanting to attend this year. Is that where we're at? And at the next meeting, we'll have a breakdown of all of that?
That sounds good.
The conferences for this year are almost over, right?
Well, the fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Yeah, so that's all full.
Because the convention, governance camp, and summer leadership. There's 3 of them there.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, and well, MOSMA, but it's coming up in September.
Yes, there's 2 in September.
Okay, so I'll send out an email to each one of y'all, just reminding y'all to let me know which ones you're wanting to attend, and then we'll get a breakdown for all of that and see what dollar amount we're at. And then be thinking about percentage also. 2 ways to look at it at the next meeting, so that we can make a decision to help get our budget taken care of. Sound good? Okay. Moving on to 14, discuss and consider the selection of board delegate and alternatives for the TASB delegate.
If you're running that.
Yes.
I'd like to see delegate.
I'd like to vote for Paul to be the delegate.
All right, any other discussion?
That was quick.
All right.
Who's going to be the alternate?
I'll be there, I mean, if you want me to. But I agree, Paul, you should be the
Well, we
delegate.
swapped, you were there for the last 2 years, right?
That sounds
good. We swapped everything.
All right. So our board delegate will be Paul Mastella, and our alternate will be Ben Benavides. That was easy. All right, number 15, discuss TM Parent Code of Conduct.
Madam President, members of the board, this was part of a board directive to the administration to bring forth some examples that other districts have regarding a parent code of conduct. Put together the purpose, the respectful communication, modeling positive behavior, supportive involvement, and commitment to safety. And then what I've passed along to you are 2 districts, Beaumont Parent Code of Conduct and West Oso's Parent Code of Conduct, and looking for any type of direction and moving forward to bring to you an action item if that's your prerogative.
His computer.
Okay.
Did it again, I just did like that.
Anybody have any discussion about the 2 we were given? In favor of one over the other, things that you like, things that you don't?
And then what you wrote in the note, that, what you're currently proposing, right?
Yeah, the rationale behind what it is. What we can do is we can, as an administration, we can merge, bring forth a draft. That would be a TMISD first read. And then you could make any edits. Whatever you would like for us to do in moving forward with this.
I think the concept and the initial indications that y'all have placed in here are feasible, understandable. I'm sure that our community would buy into it rather easily because it's rare. It's not like Beaumont. They have a lot of issues up there. Feed. And there's another one, I think it's, it might be Temple. They all.
Temple?
I think it is Temple. I'll have to check on that again, but they have these. And I think most parents, on occasion there is a parent or guardian that does act disrespectful because this not only includes sporting events, it's any campus, right?
The sporting events are covered through UIL.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying, they can still.
And the district can be penalized by inappropriate fan conduct.
Yes.
And that went into effect last school year.
And then, that's what I'm saying, because there's have that stuff about sporting and stuff, because they do have things that parents have to be escorted, parents and guardians have to be escorted from the facilities. But once this is in place, people will understand, well, that's going to be like anywhere,
Yes.
They'll understand that. That's what I'm getting at. So we don't have that big of a problem. There's every once in a while in the past that we've had to implement that where a person has been, I guess, like a restraining order. They've been restricted from a certain campus in the past. So I think it's a good thing, though, to have it in writing so people can see it, understand
Do you have to address the consequences, or?
Well, they have some in there, don't they? Well, like one of the examples or someplace that they talk about it. It'd be just like.
We would take it.
Yeah, no trespassing, stuff, things like that. But I think it's a good initiative.
Is this something that would be given at like the beginning of the year with the student handbook?
Yes.
Some people have it as a separate booklet.
So why don't you let us take a stab at a TM on it?
Yeah.
And we'll bring it back to you.
I think it's good.
Yeah, because actually UIL has gone as far as not letting fans into for example, basketball, if there are issues that had happened in there after so many times.
Or the referees.
Fans are not allowed in anymore.
Or they don't send referees to your games.
Yes.
And the kids lose out on participation. That would be huge.
So, yeah, I think this is good.
Okay, we'll do that then.
All right, moving on to 16, a report on the construction update.
Patrick, turn on this.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
All right, construction continues. School started on the 17th, and South Texas Builders has continued moving on. They work on the evenings. They take Monday and Tuesday off as their weekend, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, they're here once school ends, and they work through the evening, and then they work extended hours on Saturday and Sunday to try and keep us going. They're really excited because we have an upcoming intercession coming up here in 2 weeks. They hope to get quite a bit done. Just these are a couple of pictures and diagrams to show us what we're going. The very first one, the ACC, we're using that as the laydown area. All the building blocks, bricks, materials that are used for all the construction have been delivered to the ACC. The only brick that we're lacking is for the administration building, and that's fine because we're going to be the last one to get our upgrade and closing off the windows here at the administration building. That block has not arrived yet. Over at ACC, the front fence has already been put in. Right now, it just has a manually closing gate. Eventually, we're going to have an electronic gate that has an access code to get in and out to secure the premises. The permits for the vestibule at the front have already been submitted to the city and approved. So you will see construction beginning here probably after this intersection. We're going to have to prepare the building for another entranceway coming in through one of the front doors. So we can start dismantling the porch and start building that. Intermediate vestibule is the next picture. You can see in there that's almost completely sealed off. The last is the final set of doors that goes into the building. That's what needs to be sealed off. And then of course all the doors are temporary. Unfortunately, the bulletproof doors, bullet resistant doors, aren't scheduled to arrive here until after the September intercession. But they'll start replacing those in the evenings once they get those. Over at the intermediate 5th grade hall this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, they started taking down the glass. They got through 2 panels, and you can see the blocks already gone up. The part that's a plywood, that will be the glass will still be there, so we'll still have light coming in through the top. All right. Middle school cafeteria, that one's already been done for a while on the inside. The exterior still needs to be blocked. They're hoping to get to that during the intercession and kind of finish off the middle school cafeteria there. At the high school, the bottom picture, you see the fencing there, and that's to protect the glass wall there along the packed foyer. So that we've got some security there. We'll put the bullet-resistant film on the glass, but that just keeps people from getting any closer to the glass there. The last page, the middle school hallway. That one just shows some of the, that far window you see at the back will be going away. Both sides of the building will go away. And then the glass vestibule will move to this, the glass wall will move to this side of that maroon doorway on the left-hand side. And that classroom to the right-hand side will be the conference room for parents to meet with the administrators and stuff, so they don't have to penetrate the rest of the building.
Will it be where which side of the maroon doors?
Just to across right here. And it'll go right across this way right here.
Okay.
But on this side. Then the next slide is incorrectly labeled. Of course, that is the high school lobby, not the middle school interior. At the high school, you can see that the window going into the office has already been filled in completely. They've got the partition back there under the Tulsa Midway logo there in the background. That's closed off already. What we're waiting on pricing on is just above the Tulsa Midway. There's that open area there, and above the commons, we're looking to get that either infilled with some sort of material or glass. We're getting it quoted both ways, and then we'll bring it to you guys for approval. But it's too open, too accessible to do things, so we just need to close that off. And then finally, over at the primary, you may have noticed the cafeterias. They've been working on that for the past 2 weeks. They've got that pretty much closed off, and just need to get the windows back in. So they're moving along. The weather's cooperating, and hopefully we'll have good weather over the intersection. We'll get quite a bit knocked out.
Awesome.
That's the security and festivals. Any questions about those? Just on the cameras are completely installed now. We are having we still have some work to do in-house. The cameras, especially at the high school, the wiring was a little bit jumbled. So David, with the help of NCS, they're tracing wires and getting all the cameras properly connected. Once we get everything connected and visible on site, then Avigilon Motorola will send a crew over to help train our administrators and us to use the new system and get going with that. In speaking with David, he's hoping by the end of intercession he'll have everything addressed. But the principals do have access to the cameras, and they can view everything that's accessible.
Is there any obligation to inform the students that you've added cameras, and is there a plan to inform the students?
Special ed rooms is the requirements that we have the postings there, and we have those on the walls.
Is there a plan? Is there a plan to inform the students that cameras have been added? I mean, I think it would be a deterrent, right, to say, hey, we've upgraded our security system, so.
We'll definitely let them know.
I think it's fair, right? I mean, I think it's fair for them to know that there's not a lot of spots that aren't covered. For their safety, not just to get them in trouble, but for their safety.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure that they already know, that's all being put in. They've already told everybody, hey, you can't do.
Yeah.
Well, most of them were put in during the summer, right?
Yeah, but they come in to go.
And as they're brought in and shown, they can realize they'll see the clarity of the cameras, and the word will spread quickly.
Oh, yes.
Especially the fisheyes, those are really neat. We'll do a presentation once we get everything up and running, so you can see what's going on. As far as vehicles, of course, the 3 school buses came just after school ended. The 3 expeditions are in production right now. Once they get produced at the factory, and delivery time here, that we're expecting about the last week of September. And the 2 mini buses, are slated to arrive here in end of October, early November.
Hopefully.
Good things from the bond.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's awesome.
I think that's everything we've procured right now.
And when can you, I know at the last meeting you addressed this, but when can we see HVAC starting at primary?
I'm waiting on the contract. We'll work on getting the contract signed and approved. Probably in October, you'll start seeing some units. I'm desperately, even though I hate to start with admin first, I've got to get Philip's unit, his end of the building replaced. It's in sad shape. And then we'll start working on weekends and stuff, replacing some of the primary units. By October intercession, we should hit a pretty good group of units during October, at least the ones that are giving us the most headaches. We've got those identified.
Good.
Great update. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Progress.
right, moving on to discuss and consider approval of consent agenda informational items. We have the check payment register. Any questions on that? Everybody good with that? Okay, number 2, July 2024 financials.
I had a question on that one. The rest of our revenues there should be coming in?
I expect the settlement, the tax revenue is not gonna change. We're not gonna get any more tax money because that's from the Flint Hills settlement that they got this year. So we've got all our tax money that we've got. But I am expecting a settlement because we did have a little bit lower tax revenue. TEA, their projection was we were gonna collect a lot more taxes. So I am expecting a settlement. I think it's probably about another, I think $4 or $5 million for state revenue.
October?
I think they're gonna wait. Next week, I have to submit our tax revenues to give them a better number of what our act, that's when they'll adjust and realize, hey, we didn't get 30 million in taxes, we only got 26. So they'll make up that difference. And I think they'll give it to us in September. By the end of September, we'll get the $4 million, but it'll get recorded, it gets recognized in this year. So.
But we're gonna unofficially close out at -8 million until that's adjusted back?
Yes, I mean, that'll get booked for the audit, that'll get booked. I'll book it as a receivable as of August 31st.
Okay.
Because I'll know by the, as soon as I think it's really quickly after I do the tax survey, or tax collection, well, that's where I'm gonna tell them next week exactly what we collected, then they'll kick in the difference. And we should get it by the end of September. But the revenue will go to this year.
Okay.
It'll go to the August fiscal 24 year.
We won't know that exact amount, well, depending on their response time, right? Or is it actually whatever the difference was, that's what we get?
Yes, and then also, they haven't fully updated all the summer data all our ADA that we sent in, they haven't updated the template for that yet either. So, but it's usually I think settlement is the end of September. But I'll definitely know that for the audit.
Any other questions? Yeah. 3, quarterly investment report. Any questions on that?
That was a hard graph for me to internalize. The Valley View, those are new ones.
Yeah.
The tax collection report and enrollment report. Okay, do we have a motion?
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion made by Paul. I have a second. Second made by Ben. I have a motion and a second for the administration's recommendation that the board approve the consent agenda items as presented. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The pleasure of the board, would y'all like to take a break before going into closed session?
Yes.
Okay, 5 or 10 minutes?
10.
10? Okay.
I'll let you.
It is 8:54, and at the pleasure of the board, we're going to take a 10-minute break. All right, we have reconvened from closed session, and we do have some action that needs to be taken from closed session deliberation. And do I have a motion to approve the contract as presented for the superintendent?
But it's not as presented though, you have an amendment to it.
Yes, with the amendment.
Well, that should be.
Motion to approve the contract as amended.
As amended.
As amended, yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's contract as presented with the amendment? have a motion made by Paul A. Do I have a second? I have a motion made by Paul and a second made by Paul to approve the contract as presented with the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 4-1. We do have a future meeting, which is Monday, a special called board meeting August 26th. Remember that the meeting starts at 6:45 and will be on the following Monday. Is there any future business?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
You don't even have to look it up.
Okay, I have a motion and a second made to adjourn the meeting with no further business. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries 5-0. This meeting is adjourned at 9:41 p.m.